Chapter 787. Zhang Chunren saw that L.V. Hushan didn't make a move and frowned. L.V. Hushan, are you not going to listen to me? Hearing Zhang Chunren's voice, L.V. Hushan was shocked and hurriedly said, No, I won't. Zhang Chunren yelled. L.V. Hushan, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill Yuan Weiqing for me. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He didn't wait for L.V. Hushan to speak and said, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I've lost my martial arts and am no threat to you. Why do you still want to kill me? Zhang Chunren sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I need an obedient subordinate. Do you understand? L.V. Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you to listen to me. If you don't do it, I won't go easy on you. Tianhua hurriedly said, L.V. Hushan, you still don't understand. Even if you do it, the result will be the same. Hearing this, L.V. Hushan turned to Zhang Chunren and asked tentatively, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, if I listen to you, you won't do anything to me, right? Zhang Chunren waved his hand and said with a smile, L.V. Hushan, why would I? I've already said that as long as you listen to me, I won't treat you badly. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused and suddenly said coldly, L.V. Hushan, if you don't listen to me, then don't blame me for being impolite. Do you understand? Hearing Zhang Chunren's promise, L.V. Hushan hurriedly nodded. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I understand. Don't worry, I'll listen to you. Hearing L.V. Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren nodded with satisfaction. L.V. Hushan, since you're obedient, why don't you hurry up and do it? L.V. Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing with cold eyes. Yuan Weiqing, I'll ask you one more time. Are you going to kill Hall Master Shui or not? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. When he was about to speak, he heard Tianhua say loudly, Yuan Weiqing, don't be afraid. Come to me. He won't dare to do anything to you. Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was overjoyed. He quickly walked over to Tianhua as if he had found a life-saving straw. Seeing that Yuan Weiqing was about to leave, L.V. Hushan hurriedly chased after him. However, the distance between them was not far. L.V. Hushan had only taken 2 steps when Yuan Weiqing had already hidden behind Tianhua. L.V. Hushan, don't come over. Tianhua suddenly threw his head back and laughed. Yuan Weiqing, don't worry. He won't dare to come. Hearing Tianhua's words, L.V. Hushan was taken aback. He snapped, Tianhua, do you really want to go against me? Tianhua sneered, L.V. Hushan, so what? Although I'm injured now, it won't be easy for you to deal with me. L.V. Hushan clenched his teeth and suddenly sneered, Tianhua, don't force yourself. You're already injured and can't stand up. Do you still want to fight me? Tianhua raised the long sword in his hand and said coldly, L.V. Hushan, if you don't believe me, come and try me. I'll let you know my real swordsmanship. Hearing this, L.V. Hushan wanted to step forward, but he didn't dare. After all, Tianhua's martial arts were too high. Even if he was injured now, L.V. Hushan wasn't confident that he could defeat him. L.V. Hushan was shocked. He hurriedly turned to Zhang Chunren and asked in a trembling voice, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, what should we do? Seeing the situation in front of him, Zhang Chunren couldn't help but frown. He sneered and said, L.V. Hushan, what are you afraid of? Tianhua is seriously injured and can't even stand up. Are you still afraid of him? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, L.V. Hushan looked at Tianhua, who was sitting on the ground, and felt even more scared. Tianhua, don't scare me. I'm afraid you can't even move right now, haha. Tianhua sighed. L.V. Hushan, if you don't believe me, come and try me. Speaking of this, Tianhua paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for L.V. Hushan to answer, he snorted and continued. L.V. Hushan, do you know that some swordsmanship doesn't require internal force? As long as the swordsmanship is good, it can exert great power. L.V. Hushan, do you want to come and try? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly said, LV Hushan, that's right. Hero Yi's martial arts are very high. You're definitely no match for him. I advise you to go back obediently and don't come over. Hearing this, LV Hushan's courage dissipated. He gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, if you know what's good for you, come over obediently and listen to Deputy Hall Chief Zhang's orders. It's not too late now. If you insist on going about things the wrong way, it'll be too late when Deputy Hall Chief Zhang gets angry. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. No, I won't go over. Tianhua has made it very clear just now. Even if I do, I'm afraid that Deputy Hall Chief Zhang will kill me in the end. In this case, why should I do it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and sighed before continuing. LV Hushan, I advise you to come over too. Even if you listen to Deputy Hall Chief Zhang, I'm afraid you'll have a miserable ending in the end. It's better to fight now. Maybe there's still a way out. Tianhua smiled faintly. LV Hushan, Yuan Weiqing has already thought this through. Don't you understand? Hearing this, LV Hushan was stunned. He turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren again and asked in a trembling voice, Deputy Hall Chief Zhang, is what they said true? When it's done, will you really not let me go? Zhang Chunren waved his hand and said with a smile, LV Hushan, why would you listen to them? Why would I kill you? I've already said that even if I become the Hall Chief of the Tanlei sect in the South Commandery, I still need someone to work for me. LV Hushan, I promise you that as long as you listen to me and get rid of Yuan Weiqing and Hall Chief Shui for me, I'll never do anything to you. Is that okay? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Deputy Hall Chief Zhang, but how can I trust you? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Zhang Chunren sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, what should I say? Think about it. Why do I want you to get rid of Hall Chief Shui? It's because as long as you do it, I'll have something on you. At that time, if you don't listen to me, it'll be easy for me to use this against you. Most importantly, if I have something on you, you'll be my most loyal subordinate. Think about it, will I still do anything to you? Hearing this, LV Hushan was overjoyed. He suddenly felt that if Deputy Hall Chief Zhang had something on him, he would be much safer. If Deputy Hall Chief Zhang did not have something on him, he would not be able to control him and could only get rid of him. However, if he had something on him, wouldn't he be the most obedient subordinate? Even he would not have the heart to get rid of such a loyal subordinate, right? After thinking about this, LV Hushan suddenly realized that it was not a bad thing to have something on him in Deputy Hall Chief Zhang's hands. LV Hushan's suspicions immediately dissipated as he suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing as he laughed and said, Yuan Weiqing, did you hear that? If Vice Hall Master Zhang had a handle on me, then he would not have done anything to me. So, don't talk nonsense over there. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you to come over quickly and get rid of Hall Chief Shui for us. As long as Deputy Hall Chief Zhang has something on you, you'll be very safe. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's heart suddenly moved. He suddenly realized that LV Hushan's words seemed to make sense. Since Deputy Hall Chief Zhang had something on him, it seemed that he really did not have to get rid of him. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing secretly glanced at Tianhua beside him and could not help but frown. Although Tianhua could still pick up a long sword, Yuan Weiqing could feel that he was very weak now. Perhaps it was just as Vice Hall Leader Zhang had said. Even if he used all his strength, he could only launch one attack. In this case, it would be very dangerous for him to hide beside Tianhua. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Tianhua sighed. LV Hushan, why are you still so stubborn? Do you really believe what Zhang Chunren said? LV Hushan sneered. Tianhua, don't try to sow discord. I know what you mean. You want me to save you, right? Haha, Tianhua, I tell you, I won't save you. Don't try to sow discord here. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, we're friends. I really don't have the heart to hurt you. But if I don't do it, I'm afraid that I'll be the one killed. So, don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for not being obedient." After saying this, LV Hushan walked towards Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing suddenly broke out in cold sweat and said loudly, "LV Hushan, if you continue to walk forward, Tianhua won't go easy on you." LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, stop dreaming. If Tianhua wasn't injured, he might have been able to protect you. But now, I don't believe that he can be my opponent when he's so heavily injured. If Tianhua dares to stop me, then don't blame me for not going easy on him. Is that so? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Tianhua suddenly sneered. "LV Hushan, do you really think that I'm not your opponent?" LV Hushan sneered. "Tianhua, don't lie to me. If you still have martial arts, I'm afraid that you won't be here talking to me. You'll directly attack me, right?" Tianhua sighed. "LV Hushan, if you want to try, I won't stop you. But I hope that you won't regret it." Saying this, Tianhua picked up the sword in his hand and said slowly, "My sword rarely hurts people. But if you want to try today, then I'll fulfill your wish." Hearing this, LV Hushan was shocked. He subconsciously stopped and stared at Tianhua. After a while, he asked tentatively, "Tianhua, I'm not attacking you this time, but the people behind you. If you don't attack, I won't attack you either. What do you think?" Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and hurriedly said, "Tianhua, I only listened to you because you told me to hide here. You can't leave me alone." Tianhua shook his head. "LV Hushan, you heard it. I asked Yuan Weiqing to come here. If you hurt him in front of me, then I won't keep my word." LV Hushan frowned and gritted his teeth. "Tianhua, do you really want to go against me?" Tianhua shook his head. "LV Hushan, it's not that I want to go against you. It's you who wants to go against me." LV Hushan wanted to say more, but Zhang Chunren was already impatient and shouted, "LV Hushan, do you have to spend so much effort to deal with Yuan Weiqing? Hurry up and do it." Hearing Zhang Chunren's urging, LV Hushan subconsciously clenched his fists and stared at Tianhua. He said loudly, "Tianhua, I'll ask you one more time. As long as you don't interfere in this matter, I won't attack you. Do you agree?" Tianhua sighed. "LV Hushan, it doesn't matter whether I agree or not. What's important is that you still don't understand. Even if you get rid of Yuan Weiqing, Zhang Chunren will never let you go. Why do you have to do this?" LV Hushan sneered. "Tianhua, you don't have to worry about my matters. As long as I do as Vice Hall Leader Zhang says, nothing will happen." After hearing LV Hushan's words, Tianhua sighed and turned to look at Zhang Chunren in the distance. He said slowly, "Zhang Chunren, since you want to test me, why don't you do it yourself?" Hearing Tianhua's question, Zhang Chunren sneered. "Tianhua, why should I do it myself? You're already powerless now. Why should I do it?" Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused and snorted before continuing, "Tianhua, if I'm not wrong, even LV Hushan can easily defeat you, right?" Tianhua frowned. "Zhang Chunren, I've already said that even if I'm seriously injured now, I definitely have the ability to perish together with you. If you don't believe me, you can come and try. You'll know if it's true or not." Zhang Chunren shook his head and sneered. "You're just a loser. What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me?" After saying this, Zhang Chunren immediately turned to look at LV Hushan and said loudly, "LV Hushan, what are you waiting for?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's order, LV Hushan hurriedly nodded. He clenched his fists and walked towards Yuan Weiqing. Just as LV Hushan took a step forward, he saw Tianhua's eyes turn cold. The sword in his hand trembled in the air. LV Hushan was shocked and subconsciously stopped. Tianhua sneered and asked, "LV Hushan, why aren't you leaving? Are you afraid?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly said, LV Hushan, you can't beat Tianhua. Chapter 788. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan hesitated for a moment and suddenly sneered. Tianhua, you're trying to scare me. Do you think I'm afraid? Tianhua shook his head. LV Hushan, since you're not afraid, hurry up and come over. Zhang Chunren suddenly said loudly. LV Hushan, you don't have to be afraid. Tianhua is seriously injured. How can he be your opponent? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, LV Hushan's eyes suddenly lit up. He sneered and said, Tianhua, I won't be fooled by you. After saying this, LV Hushan pulled out his saber and slowly walked towards Tianhua. Tianhua, if you dodge now, I won't attack you. If you're still stubborn, then don't blame me for being impolite. Tianhua sighed. LV Hushan, since you're so confident, then I'll show you what real swordsmanship is. Speaking of this, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. LV Hushan, I want to ask, how do you want to be killed? Do you want me to finish you off with a piece of iron or leave you covered in injuries? Hearing the choice given by Tianhua, LV Hushan was taken aback. He subconsciously stopped and stared at Tianhua. Tianhua, are you really going to protect Yuan Weiqing? Tianhua nodded. LV Hushan, I've already said that I asked Yuan Weiqing to come over, so I'm responsible for his safety. LV Hushan, if you're willing, you can come over. Don't worry, as long as you're behind me, Zhang Chunren will definitely not dare to attack you. Just as Tianhua finished speaking, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Tianhua, do you think that with your current martial arts, you can still be my opponent? Zhang Chunren turned to look at LV Hushan and shouted sternly. LV Hushan, I'm telling you, I'm only giving you this one chance. If you don't listen, then you're useless. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused and sneered before continuing. LV Hushan, do you know what will happen to you if you're useless? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, LV Hushan hurriedly nodded and said loudly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, don't worry, I'll do it now. After saying this, LV Hushan once again walked towards Tianhua. At this moment, he was only a few steps away from Tianhua. Seeing that LV Hushan didn't listen to his advice and continued walking towards him, Tianhua sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, I didn't want to hurt you, but since you won't listen, don't blame me. At the same time, LV Hushan gritted his teeth and suddenly shouted. The blade in his hand swung towards Tianhua like a flash of lightning, accompanied by the sound of the wind. Tianhua sneered. He held his sword with one hand and gently waved it in the air. A light screen rose up in front of him. Hushan 2's it's 2 to the to this 2 to the s 2 to this 2 tietes. LV Hushan flew for 4 or 5 meters before landing heavily on the ground and wailing. His injury was very serious. His arm that held the sword had been cut off. Now, he was like Yuan Weiqing, unable to fight. Yuan Weiqing, who was standing behind Tianhua, was shocked when he saw this scene. But then, he was overjoyed. Tianhua didn't lose his martial arts. With his swordsmanship, he could definitely ensure his safety. Looking at LV Hushan wailing in pain, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered because he saw Tianhua spit out another mouthful of blood. Tianhua sighed. LV Hushan, why are you so stubborn? I've already told you that you're no match for me, but you didn't listen, so I can only attack you. Clap clap clap. Hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly clapped his hands and said with a smile, Tianhua, you really can't bear to attack. I think that if you didn't show mercy, LV Hushan would have been killed. Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I showed mercy to you because I didn't want to cause a fight between the two gangs. If you insist on attacking me, then I'll have no choice but to be heavy-handed. Ha! Hearing this, Zhang Chunren suddenly looked up and laughed. Tianhua, I didn't expect you to still be able to say such words. Yi Tianhua sneered. Zhang Chunren, do you think that I can only deal with LV Hushan and not you? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, you don't have to scare me. I can see that if LV Hushan hadn't attacked me, you would have been able to kill me. However, you used a lot of strength in that attack. I think that even if I attack you now, you won't be able to have the same number of attacks as before, right? Yi Tianhua smiled. Zhang Chunren, if you don't believe me, you can try. I won't stop you. Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. However, LV Hushan didn't believe me just now, so he ended up like this. I don't know if you want to end up like this too? Zhang Chunren sneered and nodded. Yi Tianhua, although you're strong in martial arts, you're seriously injured and forced to use your true qi. You're no match for me, so don't boast anymore. I won't believe you. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing, who was standing behind Yi Tianhua, hurriedly looked at Yi Tianhua. He was shocked and a chill rose from the bottom of his heart, because he saw that Yi Tianhua's whole body was trembling slightly. Seeing Yi Tianhua's current state, Yuan Weiqing's ecstasy immediately disappeared. He thought that Yi Tianhua could protect him, but now it seemed that Yi Tianhua couldn't because he was seriously injured. Yuan Weiqing suddenly understood that before LV Hushan rushed over, Yi Tianhua had said that he could die together with Deputy Hall Leader Zhang. Now it seemed that it was indeed possible. However, after fighting with LV Hushan, Yi Tianhua probably didn't have the strength to die together with Deputy Hall Leader Zhang. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing subconsciously took a few steps back, wanting to sneak away. Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted, Yuan Weiqing, where are you going? Did you ask me if you want to leave? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He said with a trembling voice, Deputy Hall Leader Zhang, I think we should forget about this. Let me go, and I promise not to cause you any trouble. Is that okay? Zhang Chunren shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I only want obedient subordinates. Except for my own people, I don't allow anyone to be here. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded. Deputy Hall Leader Zhang, I'll leave now. Don't worry, I'll go far away and won't come back. Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, it's too late. I've given you a chance, but you didn't take it. Now you want to leave, do you think I can't catch you? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly said, Deputy Hall Leader Zhang, don't go too far. If you want to attack me, Yi Tianhua will definitely protect me. Didn't you see LV Hushan's end? Yi Tianhua? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren looked up to the sky and laughed. Yuan Weiqing, do you think Yi Tianhua still has the strength to protect you now? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he snorted coldly and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, after Yi Tianhua and LV Hushan fought, his last trace of strength has been exhausted. If you want to rely on Yi Tianhua to protect you, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. After hearing this, Yuan Weiqing subconsciously looked at Yi Tianhua. When he could see clearly, the chill in his heart grew even stronger. This was because he saw that Yi Tianhua was not only trembling, but even his body seemed to have shrunk a little. Could it be that Yi Tianhua couldn't hold on and was going to fall? At this moment, cold sweat broke out on Yuan Weiqing's forehead. He suddenly realized that Yi Tianhua really couldn't protect him. What should he do? Just as Yuan Weiqing was sweating from fear, Zhang Chunren sneered again. Yuan Weiqing, you're a smart person. You know that I'm not lying to you. Now, Yi Tianhua can no longer protect you. I'm sure you can tell. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and sighed before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, although you've disappointed me several times, you're still the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. I'll give you another chance now. As long as you capture Yi Tianhua, I'll let bygones be bygones. What do you think? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and said in a trembling voice, "No, I don't agree." Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, Zhang Chunren sneered, "Yuan Weiqing, this is the last chance I'm giving you. If you don't seize it, then don't blame me for being merciful." Hearing Zhang Chunren's cold words, more cold sweat broke out on Yuan Weiqing's forehead. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Yi Tianhua say in a low voice, "Yuan Weiqing, run now and find the people of the Shadow Alliance in the South County. Tell them the truth and let them take revenge for us." Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He knew that this was a critical moment. Yi Tianhua also knew that he couldn't beat Zhang Chunren, so he asked him to run. "But how can I outrun Vice Hall Master Zhang?" Yi Tianhua sighed. "Now we can only rely on luck. In a while, run quickly. Then, I'll block Zhang Chunren." Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned and asked tentatively, "Yi Tianhua, but your injuries are so serious now. Can you block Vice Hall Master Zhang?" Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, Yi Tianhua sighed again. "Yuan Weiqing, don't worry. I'll do my best." Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing understood that Yi Tianhua had no confidence in blocking Zhang Chunren's attack. However, if Yi Tianhua couldn't block Zhang Chunren, then even if he wanted to run, could he? Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing felt a chill all over his body, and his entire body was trembling slightly. "Yi Tianhua, how confident are you that you can block Vice Hall Master Zhang?" Yi Tianhua shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "Yuan Weiqing, I won't hide it from you now. Let's rely on luck. If you're lucky, you should be able to escape. If you're unlucky, then we can only accept our fate." Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly felt that he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. It was as if Vice Hall Master Zhang would rush over immediately. Yuan Weiqing subconsciously glanced at LV Hushan, only to find that LV Hushan had barely sat up and was wailing in pain. What should he do? Just as Yuan Weiqing was hesitating, Zhang Chunren suddenly said loudly, "Yuan Weiqing, have you thought it through? I can tell you the truth. If it weren't for the fact that you're the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, I wouldn't have said this to you. In addition, you did put in a lot of effort for my matter just now, so I'm giving you another chance. If you don't seize it, I can only apologize to you." After hearing this, LV Hushan, who had just gotten up, said in a trembling voice, "Yuan Weiqing, you'd better listen to Vice Hall Master Zhang. Otherwise, you really won't have a chance." Yi Tianhua suddenly sneered, "LV Hushan, I really didn't expect that you would still be so stubborn even though I've already shown mercy to you. It seems that I really went easy on you just now. If I knew this would happen, I would have killed you directly." After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, LV Hushan suddenly sneered, "Yi Tianhua, do you think that I'll be grateful to you if you show mercy to me?" Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer his words, he snorted coldly and continued. "Humph, if I'm not wrong, the reason why you showed mercy to me is that you want to save some strength to deal with Vice Hall Master Zhang. But maybe you didn't expect your injury to be so serious. After you hurt me, it's probably impossible for you to deal with Vice Hall Master Zhang, hee." Yi Tianhua sighed, "LV Hushan, it seems that you still haven't come to your senses. If I knew this would happen, I really wouldn't have shown mercy to you." LV Hushan gritted his teeth. "Yi Tianhua, it's no use. You broke my arm now. When Vice Hall Master Zhang catches you later, I'll take my revenge." Haha. Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered, "Yuan Weiqing, if you're not blind, I think you should be able to see that Yi Tianhua can no longer protect you. If you know what's good for you, you'd better listen to Vice Hall Master Zhang's order and catch Yi Tianhua. Then you still have a chance. Otherwise, I don't need to tell you what will happen to you." After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said loudly, "LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. Yi Tianhua's martial arts are still there. Why can't he protect me? Chapter 789. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you really think that Tianhua can protect you? Haha, Yuan Weiqing, stop dreaming. Now, you have no other choice but to surrender. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He subconsciously glanced at Tianhua. He knew that Yuan Weiqing was right. Tianhua might not be able to protect him. What should he do? Zhang Chunren suddenly sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, we are all from the secret Thunder sect in the South County. I didn't want to do anything to you, but if you are still stubborn, I can only do something to you. Now you only have one chance. Hurry up and capture Tianhua. Not only will I let bygones be bygones, but the conditions I promised you before will still count. I will help you stand up again. Do you understand? Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing's heart suddenly moved. He naturally knew what Zhang Chunren was talking about. That was what Zhang Chunren said at the beginning, to help him stand up again and cultivate a martial art like the one-armed saber king. As soon as he thought of this possibility, Yuan Weiqing's heart skipped a beat. Even his hands trembled slightly. Zhang Chunren said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, this is the last chance I'm giving you. If you don't seize it, then I can only say sorry. Zhang Chunren's words not only tempted Yuan Weiqing, but even LV Hushan was envious. He wished that Vice Hall Master Zhang had said those words to him. Looking at LV Hushan's jealous eyes, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and turned to look at Tianhua's back. He kept thinking, what should I do? Tianhua could no longer protect him now. If he continued to stand with him, they would definitely be in trouble together. However, if he chose to surrender, there would be no problem. All the crisis would be resolved. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing looked at Tianhua with a cold gaze. He had secretly made up his mind to attack Tianhua. Tianhua naturally heard Zhang Chunren's words. He hurriedly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said in a low voice, Yuan Weiqing, wait a minute. If I tell you to run, you run quickly, understand? After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment, then hesitantly shook his head. Tianhua, I think your injuries are too serious. Why don't you surrender? Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, even if I surrender, I'm afraid he won't let me go. Now, I only hope that you can escape and tell this news to the people of the South County Shadow Alliance. Let them take revenge for me. I'll be very grateful. After hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sighed in his heart. He already understood that Tianhua already knew that he couldn't escape, so he hoped that Yuan Weiqing could escape and spread the news so that someone could avenge him. However, could he really escape? Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, are you really going to stand with Tianhua? After saying that, Zhang Chunren slowly walked towards Tianhua. Yuan Weiqing, if you still don't make a move, then don't blame me for being impolite. Seeing Zhang Chunren walking over, Yuan Weiqing's heart pounded in fright. He knew that when Zhang Chunren walked in front of him, neither he nor Tianhua would be spared. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly gritted his teeth. Although Tianhua had warned him, at this moment, he couldn't care less. He could only say sorry. At this moment, Tianhua frowned. He turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said in a low voice, I'll count to 1, 2, 3, and you run. Do you understand? Although he heard Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing didn't answer. He just nodded silently, but his fists slowly clenched. Tianhua looked at Zhang Chunren, who was getting closer and closer, and counted softly, 1, 2, 3, run. After Tianhua shouted this, he used the last of his strength and waved the longsword in his hand, stabbing towards Zhang Chunren. At this moment, Yuan Weiqing's gaze turned cold. He clenched his fist and silently smashed it towards Tianhua. Although Yuan Weiqing only had one arm left, it only delayed his martial technique. It didn't affect his strength much. Tianhua had used all his strength to throw this punch, so its power was naturally not to be underestimated. Furthermore, Tianhua was already heavily injured, so by the time he realized what was happening, Yuan Weiqing's fist had already landed on his back. Yuan Weiqing's punch was extremely powerful. He didn't hold back as it landed on Tianhua's back. Tianhua immediately screamed in pain. He couldn't even hold the sword in his hand and it fell to the ground. His entire body was actually sent flying 3 to 4 meters away before he landed heavily on the ground. Tianhua landed on the ground and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He lay there motionless. When Zhang Chunren saw Yuan Weiqing attack, he had already stopped moving. When Tianhua was sent flying, he smiled and clapped. Yuan Weiqing, good job. I didn't misjudge you. You really didn't disappoint me. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately ran over with a smile. He bowed and said, "This is all thanks to you, Vice Hall Master Zhang. I only hit him when he wasn't paying attention." Zhang Chunren nodded in satisfaction. Yuan Weiqing, good job. Now go over and see how Tianhua is doing. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly responded and quickly walked towards Tianhua. When he came close to Tianhua, he saw Tianhua lying on the ground gasping for breath. He struggled to sit up, but he couldn't. He could only helplessly glare at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, why did you do this? Yuan Weiqing smiled and shook his head. Tianhua, have you forgotten? I'm from the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Do you think I'll stand on your side? Haha, let me tell you, I was lying to you just now. You've been fooled. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua was furious. Just as he was about to reprimand Yuan Weiqing, he felt a wave of discomfort. He couldn't help but spit out a few mouthfuls of blood and began to cough violently. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, Tianhua, why are you so stupid? Don't you know that I'm from the secret Thunder sect in the South County? Why do you trust me so much? Do you really think that I'll report for you? How ridiculous! Although Tianhua heard Yuan Weiqing's words, he couldn't say it because the violent coughing caused his entire body to hurt. Even the old man was a little dizzy. Yuan Weiqing stepped forward and kicked Tianhua twice. Then, he turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said with a smile, Vice Hall Master Zhang, Tianhua is no longer a threat. What should we do next? Zhang Chunren waved his hand. There's no rush. After saying this, Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at LV Hushan. When LV Hushan arrived in front of him, he asked with concern, LV Hushan, I really didn't expect you to be so seriously injured. Hearing Zhang Chunren's greeting, LV Hushan suddenly felt warmth in his heart. He said with a choked voice, Vice Hall Master Zhang, for the secret Thunder sect in the South County, I'll do anything. I won't even frown. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, LV Hushan, you're good too. You didn't let me down. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, you're seriously injured now. Can you still move? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his remaining arm and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I'm fine. Although I'm injured, it's nothing. I can do more for Vice Hall Master Zhang. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren was even more satisfied. He asked with a smile, LV Hushan, I'm asking you to kill Hall Master Xue now. Are you willing to do it? Hearing this, LV Hushan was stunned, and the smile on his face froze. After a while, he forced a smile and said, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I'm afraid that I'm not Hall Master Xue's opponent with such a serious injury. Zhang Chunren frowned. LV Hushan, Hall Master Xue is seriously injured. What are you afraid of? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly lowered his voice and said, Vice Hall Master Zhang, when I was over there just now, I seem to have seen Shui Tang take the initiative. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused and continued, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I think Hall Master Shui seems to have woken up. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren was also shocked. He hurriedly turned his head to look. After looking for a while, he sneered and said, LV Hushan, no, you're just seeing things. Hall Master Shui is seriously injured. How can he wake up so quickly? Don't worry. Hurry up and kill him. Today's matter will basically come to an end. Hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, LV Hushan nodded and turned his head to look at Hall Master Shui. Suddenly, he was shocked and hurriedly said, Vice Hall Master Zhang, look, Hall Master Shui seems to have moved again. He must have woken up. Zhang Chunren shook his head. LV Hushan, don't scare yourself. You're already timid. If you scare yourself like this, you'll take it seriously. Go quickly. There's absolutely no problem. How can Hall Master Shui wake up so easily? Seeing that Zhang Chunren didn't believe his words, LV Hushan hurriedly explained, It's true, Vice Hall Master Zhang. What I said is true. I really saw Shui Tang take the initiative. He must have woken up. Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at LV Hushan. He sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, let me tell you, even if Hall Master Shui has woken up, he is seriously injured. Are you still afraid of him? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. Vice Hall Master Zhang, Hall Master Shui's martial arts are superior. I'm really not his opponent. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to answer his words, he raised his broken arm and continued to speak. Vice Hall Master Zhang, you see, my arm has been seriously injured. I don't have much martial arts left. If Hall Master Shui wakes up, I'm definitely not his opponent. Hearing this, Zhang Chunren frowned and asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you mean that once Hall Master Shui wakes up, you won't dare to deal with him? Looking at Zhang Chunren's angry face, LV Hushan whispered, Vice Hall Master Zhang, my martial arts are really not as good as his. Once he wakes up, I'm definitely not his opponent. After listening to LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren sighed. LV Hushan, if you encounter danger in the future and find that you can't solve it, won't you solve it? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, LV Hushan was stunned. Then, he hurriedly waved his hand. Vice Hall Master Zhang, that's not what I meant. If it weren't for Hall Master Shui, even if I know that I'm not his opponent, I would still go. Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at LV Hushan and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you know that when I become the Hall Master of the Secret Thunder Sect in South County, I will definitely choose some absolutely obedient people to be my subordinates. I originally wanted to train you well, but you still care about Hall Master Shui in your heart. How can I rest assured? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, LV Hushan, take this as a test for you. If you can complete this test, you will be my brother. But if you can't complete this test, you should be clear about the consequences, right? Hearing this, the cold sweat on LV Hushan's forehead suddenly flowed down. He hurriedly waved his hand. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I won't. I will listen to you. As long as it's your order, I will do it. Zhang Chunren nodded. LV Hushan, Yuan Weiqing has completed my test and has become my brother. Now, it's up to you to complete my test. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing, who had just walked over, was overjoyed when he heard Zhang Chunren's words. He hurriedly said to LV Hushan, LV Hushan, you'd better listen to Vice Hall Master Zhang's orders and kill Hall Master Shui quickly. Otherwise, you will regret it. Zhang Chunren smiled and nodded. LV Hushan, you see, even Yuan Weiqing understands this. Why don't you understand? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, go quickly. I will never treat you unfairly. If you do as I say, I will also help you complete the conditions I promised you. What do you think? Hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, LV Hushan's heart suddenly moved. He hurriedly asked, Vice Hall Master Zhang, you mean that if I kill Hall Master Shui, you will help me practice martial arts? Zhang Chunren smiled and nodded. LV Hushan, if you do this for me, you and Yuan Weiqing will naturally be my good brothers. Tell me, how can I treat my brothers unfairly? Yuan Weiqing also hurriedly said, LV Hushan, go quickly. You only have this one chance. If you don't seize it, you will really have no more chances. At that time, it will be too late for you to regret. Chapter 790. After LV Hushan heard their conversation, he sighed in his heart. At this moment, he finally understood Yuan Weiqing's thoughts. Yuan Weiqing's arm was injured just now, so he didn't have much martial arts left. Now, his arm was also injured, and his combat effectiveness was reduced by more than half. The injuries they suffered were basically different. The only difference was that Yuan Weiqing's left arm was injured, while his right arm was injured. Both of their right arms were the main force, and LV Hushan's right arm was injured. This meant that his injury was more serious than Yuan Weiqing's. If Yuan Weiqing had 20% of his combat effectiveness left, then LV Hushan probably didn't even have 10% of his combat effectiveness. Depending on the situation, one would have their own thoughts. At this moment, LV Hushan was thinking a lot. He knew very well that if he killed Hall Leader Shui, then once the news spread, Hall Leader Shui's people would definitely come to him for revenge. If LV Hushan still had his martial arts, even if he couldn't beat them, he could at least escape. However, with his current martial arts, once those people really came to him for revenge, he wouldn't have a chance to escape even if he wanted to. The most important thing was that Hall Leader Shui's matter would definitely be known by others. This was because LV Hushan also knew that Deputy Hall Leader Zhang didn't make a move, but let him and Yuan Weiqing do it for this purpose. LV Hushan was very clear about this point, so he was hesitating. It could even be said that his thoughts were completely different from before. Just now, he wanted to make a move in exchange for a chance to practice martial arts, but now he suddenly realized that once he made a move, he was afraid that he would soon face great danger. Hall Leader Shui had been the Hall Leader for so many years, so he definitely had subordinates who were loyal to him. Once these people knew the truth, how could they let him go? It was precisely because of this reason that LV Hushan was reluctant to make a move. Because he knew that once he made a move, the enemy he would face in the future was probably more dangerous than the bandit leader, Boss Liu. Thinking of this, LV Hushan hurriedly coughed a few times. He covered his arm and wailed in pain, Deputy Hall Leader Zhang, my arm is in too much pain. Even if I want to move, I'm afraid I can't. Seeing the look on LV Hushan's face, Yuan Weiqing immediately understood what he was thinking. He hurriedly said, LV Hushan, just bear with it for a while. Let's first complete Vice Hall Master Zhang's task. LV Hushan was annoyed, but the expression on his face was even more painful. He shook his head hard. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I don't want to move, but my arm is in too much pain. I really can't move. While howling in pain, LV Hushan directly sat on the ground and cried out, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I really can't take it anymore. Why don't we let Yuan Weiqing do it? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was furious. LV Hushan, Vice Hall Master Zhang asked you to do it. How can you refuse? Don't you want to do something for Vice Hall Master Zhang? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and continued, LV Hushan, this is your only chance. If you don't seize it, Vice Hall Master Zhang won't be polite to you. LV Hushan sneered in his heart. He hurriedly turned to look at Vice Hall Master Zhang and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I didn't mean that. My arm is really injured now. You can see that I'm not lying to you. If it's possible, can you let me rest for a while? After I recover, I'll do it, okay? Zhang Chunren looked at the injury on LV Hushan's arm, and could not help but frown. LV Hushan, are you really unable to move? Hearing this, LV Hushan hurriedly nodded. Vice Hall Master Zhang, it's true. I won't lie to you. You see, even if Yi Tianhua's martial arts are excellent, I still did it to him. What's more, Hall Master Xue has lost his martial arts. If I'm not injured, I will definitely listen to you and do it. Otherwise, you can wait and let me rest for a while. What do you think? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to answer his question and continued to speak. Vice Hall Master Zhang, if you can't wait, why don't you let Yuan Weiqing do it? Anyway, it's the same no matter who does it, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren frowned and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. Just as he was about to speak, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly shouted. Vice Hall Master Zhang, don't listen to his nonsense. Even if the injury is serious, how can it be that he can't move at all? Vice Hall Master Zhang, he just doesn't want to work for you, so he said that he can't move his arm. Don't be fooled. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren could not help but frown. He turned to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, is what Yuan Weiqing said true? Are you lying to me? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, LV Hushan suddenly broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly waved his hand. Vice Hall Master Zhang, how dare I lie to you? What I said is true. You have seen my injury. Even if I lie to you, you won't believe it, right? Vice Hall Master Zhang, my injury is really serious now. I need to rest for a while to get better. This is the truth. I didn't lie to you. Zhang Chunren turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. He hesitated for a moment, then said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, since LV Hushan can't do it, I think you should do it. It will save time. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was suddenly shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. Vice Hall Master Zhang, LV Hushan is really lying to you. Although his arm is injured, his other arm is not injured. If he wants to do it, he can definitely do it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan hurriedly said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, you are talking nonsense. I am so seriously injured. How can I do it? Besides, I didn't say that I won't do it. I just said that I will rest for a while. When the pain subsides, I will go over. LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. He sneered and continued to speak without caring for Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, I understand. Do you not want to listen to Vice Hall Master Zhang's order and do not want to do it? Could it be that you are still grateful to Hall Master Xue and hope that he will be our Hall Master again? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was so scared that he waved his hand and shouted, LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? How can I have such thoughts? I think it's because you don't want to do it. You are still grateful to Hall Master Xue and hope that he will be the Hall Master of the Secret Thunder Sect in the South County again. LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, since you don't mean that, then tell me, why don't you want to do it? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and shouted, LV Hushan, don't forget that you are the one who wants to do it. It's because you don't want to do it that I said that. LV Hushan sneered, but my arm is injured and I can't do it anymore. Why don't you do it? Do you have other motives? You are talking nonsense. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said, LV Hushan, your arm is injured, but my arm is not injured. Why can't you do it, but I can? I think you have other motives. You don't want to do it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan raised his arm and sneered, Yuan Weiqing, look. Your left arm is injured, and you usually use your right arm. As for me, my right arm is injured, which is the arm I always use. Then tell me, what can I do with my left arm that I don't use often? At this point, LV Hushan's tone paused. He smiled bitterly and continued with some sadness, Yuan Weiqing, to be honest, for so many years, I have not used my left arm much. Now that I have lost my right arm, if I only use my left arm, I'm afraid I can't even pick up a knife. How can I fight?" After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned again. He looked at LV Hushan's injured arm and knew that LV Hushan was telling the truth. But at the same time, he suddenly felt refreshed. Just now, LV Hushan bullied him because his arm was broken and wanted to attack him. Now, LV Hushan had lost his important right arm. Humph, let's see if he still dares to attack me in the future. After listening to the words of the two, Zhang Chunren frowned and said slowly, "Yuan Weiqing, since LV Hushan has suffered such a serious injury, I think you should go and do it. Anyway, it's a piece of cake. Why waste time?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback. He subconsciously took a step back and said quickly, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, how can this be? You asked LV Hushan to do it. Why do you want me to do it?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, don't you want to do it?" Hearing this, before Yuan Weiqing could speak, LV Hushan said first, "Yuan Weiqing, I think you are still grateful to Hall Master Shui. I'm afraid you want him to run away secretly and continue to be the Hall Master of the Tanlei sect in the South region." Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly became angry and said loudly, "LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. Although Hall Master Shui promoted me, it was all because of my hard work. If I didn't work hard enough, how could he promote me? So, why should I be grateful to him? Don't worry about it. I thank you." Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused. Suddenly, his heart moved. He turned to look at LV Hushan and sneered before continuing, "LV Hushan, I remember. I finally remember. Turns out that you are really grateful to Hall Master Shui." Yuan Weiqing turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, do you know how LV Hushan got the protector position?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren frowned and asked with some doubts, "I remember that LV Hushan got it by himself, and the test question was set by me." Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren's tone paused, thought for a moment, and then continued, "I remember that the test's topic was to ask him to go to the back of the mountain to get a piece of spirit stone, and he did it, so he was made a protector?" While speaking, Zhang Chunren suddenly frowned. He turned to look at LV Hushan and asked tentatively, "LV Hushan, I remember that your martial arts are not very high, and the snow leopard in the back of the mountain is not something you can deal with your martial arts. When you went to the back of the mountain to get the spirit stone, you didn't seem to be injured at all." Zhang Chunren's brows furrowed even tighter as he muttered to himself, "No, LV Hushan, with your martial arts, even if you were able to obtain the spirit stones, I'm afraid you would have been seriously injured, but why aren't you injured?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, why is LV Hushan not injured?" I know, before Yuan Weiqing finished speaking, he was interrupted by an anxious LV Hushan. "Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. This matter has nothing to do with you. Don't talk nonsense." After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. He turned to look at LV Hushan and asked with a smile, "By the way, LV Hushan, tell me. With your martial arts, it is impossible to deal with the snow leopard, but why are you not injured and can get the spirit stone?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and said in a panic, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, it's luck. It's all luck. When I went to get the spirit stone, the snow leopard happened to not be there. In addition, I deliberately hid, so I was not discovered by the snow leopard, so I was not injured." After hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren shook his head. "No, the snow leopard's perception is very strong. If someone enters its territory, it will definitely find out. No matter how good you are at hiding, you can't escape from the snow leopard's tracking. No, it's definitely not right. You want to rely on hiding to avoid the snow leopard's tracking. It's absolutely impossible. Zhang Chunren turned to look at LV Hushan and asked loudly, LV Hushan, tell me, what is going on? Cold sweat on LV Hushan's forehead flowed down his cheek. He hurriedly waved his hand and said in a trembling voice, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, it's really luck. It's my good luck. Maybe the snow leopard is asleep and did not find me. Zhang Chunren sneered, LV Hushan, do you think I will believe what you said? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren's tone paused before he continued, LV Hushan, let me tell you, even if the snow leopard is asleep, as long as someone appears near it, it will still find out. Do you understand? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. No, maybe it's my good luck. Maybe when the snow leopard is asleep, it will not find out that someone has broken into its territory. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, do you know that when I was a protector, the exam topic was to go to the back of the mountain to get a spirit stone? So, I know the snow leopard very well. I am sure that the reason why you were able to get the spirit stone back without any injuries is definitely not because the snow leopard was sleeping, but because of other reasons. LV Hushan, can you tell me what the reason is? Chapter 791. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, LV Hushan suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, Vice Hall Master Zhang, there is no other reason. There is really no other reason. Maybe I was lucky. Maybe the snow leopard was sick, so it didn't attack me. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren frowned and said, LV Hushan, that's impossible. How could a snow leopard be sick? LV Hushan hurriedly nodded and said, Luck, Vice Hall Master Zhang, it was all luck. There is really no other reason. LV Hushan had just said this, but before Zhang Chunren could speak, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered and said, LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. What is the reason? Do you still want me to say it? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren could not help but frown. He turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked in a cold voice, Yuan Weiqing, do you know the reason? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded and said, Of course I know. Otherwise, how would I dare to say it? Zhang Chunren nodded and asked in a cold voice, Yuan Weiqing, well then, tell me, how did LV Hushan get the spirit stones from the back mountain without suffering any injuries? Zhang Chunren had just finished speaking when LV Hushan hurriedly shouted, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. What you said is false. No one will believe it. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, LV Hushan, since no one will believe it, why are you afraid? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, I am not afraid. I am afraid that you will talk nonsense. After saying that, LV Hushan hurriedly turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, you can't listen to Yuan Weiqing's words. He's just talking nonsense. None of it is true. Zhang Chunren turned to look at LV Hushan and frowned. LV Hushan, since it is not true, why are you afraid? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and said, I am not afraid. I am just afraid that you will believe Yuan Weiqing's words. Zhang Chunren sneered. LV Hushan, if Yuan Weiqing is lying, I naturally won't believe him. What are you afraid of? LV Hushan hurriedly said, Vice Hall Master Zhang, Yuan Weiqing wants to frame me, so he will definitely say something unfavorable to me. You must not let him say it. When Zhang Chunren saw that LV Hushan was so nervous, he couldn't help but have some doubts in his heart. He turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said in a deep voice, Yuan Weiqing, do you really know the reason? Yuan Weiqing nodded. Of course, he told me himself. I naturally know the reason. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's reply, Zhang Chunren turned to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, is what Yuan Weiqing said true? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. No, I was lying to him. How could it be true? Zhang Chunren gritted his teeth, turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, I tell you, if you dare to lie, don't blame me for being rude to you. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded and said with a sneer, Vice Hall Master Zhang, he told me this himself. Otherwise, how could I know such a secret? Hearing the word secret, Zhang Chunren's heart moved and he said slowly, In this case, Yuan Weiqing, tell me, what did LV Hushan tell you? Hearing that Zhang Chunren allowed him to speak, Yuan Weiqing smiled and nodded. He turned his head to look at LV Hushan and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, LV Hushan went to the back of the mountain to get the spirit stones. The reason why he was able to get the spirit stones back without suffering any injuries was that someone helped him. Therefore, he was able to complete the test without suffering any injuries. The person who helped him was, before Yuan Weiqing finished his words, he was interrupted by LV Hushan. Yuan Weiqing, I don't allow you to speak anymore. Stop. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered and turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren. He asked with a smile, Vice Hall Master Zhang, LV Hushan doesn't allow me to speak. Should I speak? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren turned his head and glared at LV Hushan fiercely. Then he said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, just go on. Ignore him. If he dares to interrupt you again, I will teach him a lesson. Yuan Weiqing nodded with a sneer. Vice Hall Master Zhang, the reason why LV Hushan was able to get the spirit stones back of the mountain without suffering any injuries was that Hall Master Shui helped him get the spirit stones back. As soon as Yuan Weiqing finished speaking, a cold light flashed in Zhang Chunren's eyes. He turned his head to look at LV Hushan and asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, I didn't expect your relationship with Hall Master Shui to be so good. In order for you to successfully become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, he was willing to get the spirit stones for you. It seems that Hall Master Shui already treats you as one of his own, right? Hearing these words, LV Hushan was shocked. He hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, no, I can become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County because of my own efforts. I definitely didn't rely on Hall Master Shui's help. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I have nothing to do with Hall Master Shui. Believe me, Yuan Weiqing is lying to you. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, you said that I'm lying to you. Then let me ask you, did you tell me these words? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. No, I'm lying to you. This is all fake. I only said this to make you believe me. Speaking of this, LV Hushan hurriedly turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, what Yuan Weiqing said is all fake. I said this to lie to him. Please believe me, this is not true. Zhang Chunren sneered. LV Hushan, since it's not true, then tell me, how did you get the spirit stones back without suffering any injuries? Hearing this, LV Hushan was stunned and said in a trembling voice, Vice Hall Master Zhang, it's true. I didn't lie to you. I was really lucky. When I went to the back mountain, I didn't see the snow leopard, so I was able to get the spirit stones back without suffering any injuries. Vice Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. Yes, I won't lie to you. Please believe me. As soon as LV Hushan's voice fell, Yuan Weiqing sneered and asked loudly, LV Hushan, you can lie to others, but do you think you can lie to us? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to speak, he continued. LV Hushan, we all know that no one can easily take anything out of the snow leopard's territory. No one can, unless your martial arts are much higher than the snow leopard's, so you can easily take things out. Otherwise, it's absolutely impossible. LV Hushan, I think you should tell the truth. I believe that Vice Hall Master Zhang is a magnanimous person. As long as you tell the truth honestly, he will not blame you. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth and shouted, Yuan Weiqing, I lied to you. How do you want me to admit it? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, why are you still so stubborn? Do you want us to believe that your martial arts are much higher than the snow leopards? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, please believe me. Although my martial arts are not as good as the snow leopards, I was lucky. When I went to the back mountain, I really didn't see the snow leopard, so I was able to get the spirit stones back without suffering any injuries. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you think we will believe your words? As soon as Yuan Weiqing's voice fell, before LV Hushan could speak, Zhang Chunren sneered. LV Hushan, Yuan Weiqing is right. Unless your martial arts are much higher than the snow leopards, it is absolutely impossible for you to get the spirit stones back without suffering any injuries. At this point, Zhang Chunren's tone paused, but immediately after, without waiting for LV Hushan to speak, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, I know your martial arts. If you say that your martial arts are higher than the snow leopards, I don't need to say it. Do you believe it yourself? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, LV Hushan sighed helplessly and said slowly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. Why don't you believe me? When I went to the back mountain, I also had the idea of fighting with the snow leopard, but I really didn't see it. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. That's impossible. That snow leopard had always been on the back mountain and did not allow anyone to hurt it. How could it be so coincidental that it left when you went? Moreover, after you, there were people who took this test and all of them met the snow leopard. Some of them succeeded and some of them failed, but no matter whether they succeeded or failed, they would have suffered some injuries. Moreover, one of them died in front of the snow leopard because of this test. LV Hushan, am I right? LV Hushan nodded and said with a bitter smile, That's right. That's indeed the case. After me, there were indeed people who went to the back mountain and saw the snow leopard. Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, if that's the case, then let me ask you. Everyone else saw the snow leopard, but why didn't you see it? At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but immediately after, without waiting for LV Hushan to speak, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, could it be that you know the snow leopard? Haha. At the end of his sentence, Yuan Weiqing could not help but laugh out loud. Looking at Yuan Weiqing, who was laughing at the sky, LV Hushan was instantly enraged. He said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, what's so funny about this? I didn't see the snow leopard. It's not my fault. What can I do? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sneered. LV Hushan, let me tell you. There is only one reason why you didn't see the snow leopard. That is because Hall Master Shui helped you. That is why you could do this so easily. LV Hushan was so angry that the veins on his forehead were popping out. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. Everything you said is fake. No one will believe you. At this point, LV Hushan hurriedly turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, please believe me. I'm really not lying to you. Everything I said is true. I'm not lying at all. Hearing LV Hushan's reply, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, you're right. Everything you said is true because everything you said is a lie. You're talking nonsense. LV Hushan gritted his teeth and glared at Yuan Weiqing. He said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, I'm lying to you. It's your business whether you want to believe it or not. I don't care. I hope you don't say anything else so that Vice Hall Master Zhang won't misunderstand me. Hearing this, Zhang Chunren sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, if you don't want me to misunderstand you, you should take out actual evidence. But since you don't, I can only misunderstand you. Yuan Weiqing also sneered and said, That's right. LV Hushan, if you want us to believe that your words are true, then you should take out evidence to prove that what I said is false. At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to speak, he snorted and continued. LV Hushan, if you can't take out evidence to prove that what I said is false, then it's true. The reason why you can become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County is all because of Hall Master Shue's help. The reason why you're unwilling to make a move now is that you're still grateful to Hall Master Shue. You hope that he can escape quickly and not be killed by us, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, cold sweat broke out on LV Hushan's forehead. He hurriedly waved his hand and shouted, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. How can this be? I can become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County because of my own hard work. What does it have to do with Hall Master Shue? This is all your lies. Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, I think you should admit it. If it's not true, with your martial arts, you're not even as good as me. How could you get the spirit stones from the snow leopard's territory? LV Hushan said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, I've already said that I was lucky. I didn't see the snow leopard, so I could get the spirit stones smoothly. Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sighed. LV Hushan, why are you still unwilling to admit it? Now that the evidence is conclusive, do you think that even if you deny it, we can believe it? Zhang Chunren nodded. LV Hushan, Yuan Weiqing is right. Evidence. You have to take out evidence to prove that what he said is false. Or, you have to take out evidence to prove that you can beat the snow leopard. Only in this way can I believe you. Do you understand? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, take it out. Quickly take out your evidence and let us see it so that we can believe you. After hearing their words, LV Hushan shook his head with a wry smile. I don't have evidence. You also know that when taking this test, you can't have companions. You can only go to the back of the mountain to get a spirit stone. How can I have evidence? Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, LV Hushan, you can also tell us why you didn't see the snow leopard. If you can tell us the reason, maybe Vice Hall Master Zhang will believe you. Hearing this, Zhang Chunren nodded. Then tell us. Chapter 792. After hearing their words, LV Hushan shook his head with a wry smile. You want me to show evidence, but even if I say it alone, you won't believe me. Zhang Chunren frowned. LV Hushan, as long as what you say is true, why wouldn't we believe you? LV Hushan sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, even if what I said is true, you won't believe me. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, you still dare to lie to us. Do you think Vice Hall Master Zhang is easy to fool? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, what I said is true. I beg you, please stop talking about it, okay? Yuan Weiqing shook his head with a smile. LV Hushan, it's fine if you don't want me to say it, but you have to show evidence to prove that what you said is true. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and sneered. Then he slowly said, LV Hushan, just admit it. You don't want to do anything to Hall Master Shue. As long as you say it directly, maybe Vice Hall Master Zhang will forgive you this time. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, how is this possible? What you said is not true. How can I admit it? Zhang Chunren frowned. LV Hushan, I just want to know now. When you went to the back mountain, how did you get the spirit stone without getting hurt? LV Hushan shook his head with a wry smile. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I don't know. When I went, I really didn't see the snow leopard, so I came back. I didn't lie to you. It's all true. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren sneered. LV Hushan, don't you feel strange when you say this? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, when everyone went to the back of the mountain, they all saw a snow leopard. Those with high martial arts skills could return safely, while those with low martial arts skills would die. Even if they were lucky, they would be seriously injured. Among so many people, there was no exception. They all saw the snow leopards, but why was it that you were the only one who said that there were no snow leopards in the back mountain? LV Hushan, do you think I will believe you when you say that there are no snow leopards in the back mountain? After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, LV Hushan sighed. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. I didn't lie to you. When I went to the back mountain, I really didn't see any snow leopards. At that time, I was wondering why I didn't see any snow leopards. Zhang Chunren shook his head. LV Hushan, that's impossible. That snow leopard has been at the back of the mountain for many years. It would never leave, let alone fall sick. I don't believe any of what you said. Yuan Weiqing sneered at LV Hushan. LV Hushan, I think you'd better tell the truth. It was Hall Master Shui who helped you, right? LV Hushan shook his head weakly. No, I was lying to you. It's not true. Hall Master Shui didn't help me. All of this was achieved by my own efforts. I didn't rely on anyone else's help. Speaking of this, LV Hushan suddenly raised his head and looked at Zhang Chunren. He said loudly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I didn't lie to you. What I said is true. The reason why I said this to Yuan Weiqing was that I wanted to trick him and make him do it. But who would have thought that things would turn out like this? If I had known, I wouldn't have said those words. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, please believe me. What I said is true. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren sighed and slowly said, LV Hushan, if you want me to forgive you, then tell me the truth. When you went to the back of the mountain, why weren't you injured? Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, LV Hushan, Deputy Hall Master Zhang is right. With your martial arts, it's absolutely impossible for you to be the snow leopard's opponent. But you didn't suffer any injuries and easily took back the spirit stones. This point is really strange. LV Hushan sighed. What I said just now is true. When I went to the back of the mountain, I really didn't see the snow leopard. If I had seen it, I would have been seriously injured by it. But I didn't see the snow leopard. In fact, for so many years I've been wondering why. Why is it that everyone else saw the snow leopard but I couldn't? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you think that Deputy Hall Master Zhang will believe such perfunctory words? LV Hushan, I think it's better if you just tell the truth quickly. Do you want me to force you to tell the truth? Hearing these words, LV Hushan's eyes immediately widened. He fiercely stared at Yuan Weiqing and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, you dare? Yuan Weiqing nodded and sneered. LV Hushan, have you forgotten how you treated me just now? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face suddenly changed. He remembered that when Yuan Weiqing's injury was more serious, he had bullied him. Thinking of this, LV Hushan subconsciously took a step back. This was because he knew that his injury was on his right arm, which was the arm that he often used. On the other hand, Yuan Weiqing's injury was on his left arm, which he rarely used. In this case, Yuan Weiqing could definitely easily defeat LV Hushan. It was precisely because he understood this truth that LV Hushan suddenly realized that now was not the same as before. The one who was bullied should be him. Thinking of this, LV Hushan said in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what I said is true. Why don't you believe me? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, what you said now is true. Do you mean that what you said to me just now is false? Hearing these words, cold sweat suddenly appeared on LV Hushan's forehead. He hurriedly waved his hand. No, no, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, what you said is somewhat wrong. What you said to me just now is true. What you said now is also true. Then let me ask you, if what you said is true both times, isn't it contradictory? LV Hushan wiped the sweat that was about to flow out of his eyes and said in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, let's not talk about what happened just now. I can guarantee that what I said now is true. I'm definitely not lying to you. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you lie too much. I don't dare to believe you anymore. Now, only if you show me evidence to prove that what you said is true, then I will believe you. Otherwise, Deputy Hall Master Zhang and I will never believe you. Zhang Chunren nodded and asked coldly, LV Hushan, I'm also very curious. In the back mountain, everyone else could see the snow leopard except you. How did you do it? Hearing this question, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I don't know. After I went to the back mountain, I really didn't see the snow leopard. As for the reason, I really don't know. Zhang Chunren shook his head. LV Hushan, it's impossible. There must be a reason. Is it that you don't want to tell us? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. No, I really don't know. If I knew, I would definitely tell you. Yuan Weiqing suddenly said, LV Hushan, I think it's not that you don't know, but that you don't want to say it. You don't want to admit that Hall Master Shui helped you, right? Hearing this, LV Hushan was a little annoyed and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that these things have nothing to do with Hall Master Shui. He didn't help me. When I went to the back mountain, I really didn't see the snow leopard. That's why I was able to get the spirit stones back smoothly. Why don't you believe me? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, if it were you, would you believe it? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly froze. Yuan Weiqing was right. If it were him, would he believe it? The answer was no. Zhang Chunren looked coldly at LV Hushan and asked loudly, LV Hushan, tell me, did Hall Master Shui help you get the spirit stones back smoothly? At this point, Zhang Chunren's tone paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, don't worry. Even if Hall Master Shui helped you, as long as you work for me, I will definitely forgive you. Just say it, understand? After hearing Zhang Chunren's question, LV Hushan shook his head. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, please believe me. It really wasn't Hall Master Shui who helped me. The truth of the matter is as I said. When I went to the back mountain, I really didn't see the snow leopard. That's why I wasn't hurt at all. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, now that things have come to this, I advise you to quickly admit it. If you don't admit it, don't blame me for being rude. After saying this, Yuan Weiqing waved his fist and said slowly, LV Hushan, you are definitely not my opponent now. If you don't say it, then don't blame me for not taking into account our relationship as fellow disciples. Looking at Yuan Weiqing waving his fist, LV Hushan knew that Yuan Weiqing wanted him to keep quiet so that he could take revenge. Understanding this, Yuan Weiqing only felt a chill rising from the bottom of his heart. He subconsciously took a step back and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, don't come over. What I said is true. I'm really not lying to you. At this point, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren and sighed. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, to be honest, I don't understand why everyone else could see the snow leopard but I didn't. Seeing that LV Hushan was still unwilling to tell the truth, a cold light flashed in Zhang Chunren's eyes. He turned his head slightly and gave Yuan Weiqing a look. Seeing Zhang Chunren's look, Yuan Weiqing immediately understood. Without saying anything, he took a step forward and waved his remaining arm towards LV Hushan. LV Hushan had been on guard against Yuan Weiqing. When he saw Yuan Weiqing attacking him, he hurriedly raised his hand to block. In a hurry, LV Hushan subconsciously raised his right arm. How could he block Yuan Weiqing's attack? Yuan Weiqing's punch directly hit his body. He screamed in pain and took 4 or 5 steps back before falling to the ground. Yuan Weiqing slowly came in front of LV Hushan and looked down at him. He sneered and asked, LV Hushan, how does it feel? To tell you the truth, I didn't use my full strength just now. If you dare to not tell the truth, my next punch will make you suffer. LV Hushan, who fell to the ground, was hit hard by Yuan Weiqing's punch. Coupled with the pain in his arm, he was sweating profusely. Even his face had turned pale. LV Hushan wailed in pain and gasped for breath. After a while, he said in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, you really hit me. Have you forgotten that we were once good brothers? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing couldn't bear it in his heart. However, when he thought of LV Hushan hitting him just now, this trace of pity immediately disappeared. LV Hushan, now you know that we are good brothers. Have you forgotten how you treated me just now? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, I just wanted to scare you just now. I didn't want to hurt you. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I've already said it. Seeing that we used to be good brothers, I've already shown mercy. You also know my martial arts. If I were to go all out against you, I'm afraid that your injuries would be much more serious than now, right? Hearing these words, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Although he knew that Yuan Weiqing was telling the truth, the resentment in his heart could not be eliminated. Yuan Weiqing, you still remember that we were once good brothers. You hit me like this. Is this how you treat a good brother? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, who told you not to tell the truth? If you told the truth, we would still be good brothers. How could I hit you? Don't you think so? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for LV Hushan to answer his words and continued to speak. LV Hushan, if you are smart, tell the truth now. We will still be good brothers in the future. What do you think? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, what I said just now was the truth. If you don't believe me, what can I do? Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, what is your so-called truth? Tell me, are you telling me the truth, or are you telling the truth to Vice Hall Master Zhang? Hearing this question, LV Hushan was suddenly stunned. He stared blankly at Yuan Weiqing. For a moment, he was speechless. If what he said to Yuan Weiqing was a lie, then didn't it mean that he had lied to Yuan Weiqing just now? Seeing that LV Hushan did not answer his question, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered and said slowly, LV Hushan, in fact, even if you don't say it, I know. Do you want to say that you were lying to me just now and that you are telling the truth now? Chapter 793. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was a little embarrassed and hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't mean it, don't blame me, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, then can you tell me why you lied to me? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, don't ask. I don't have any bad intentions, don't blame me. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, but I think what you said is true. Because, other than this explanation, it's impossible for you to get the spirit stones back without getting hurt in front of the snow leopard. LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. No, it's not like that. Yuan Weiqing, I've already explained. When I went to the back mountain, I didn't see the snow leopard, so I was able to get the spirit stones back without getting hurt. It has nothing to do with Hall Master Shui. Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you mean that the snow leopard on the road knows you? LV Hushan shook his head. It's my first time going to the back mountain, how could the snow leopard know me? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Since the snow leopard doesn't know you, why would it let you go so easily? Who would believe such words? Hearing this, LV Hushan hurriedly said loudly, but it's all true, I didn't lie to you. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said coldly, LV Hushan, it seems that my punch just now wasn't hard enough. After saying this, Yuan Weiqing raised his fist again and waved it in front of LV Hushan. He sneered and said, LV Hushan, I'll ask you again, are you telling the truth or not? If you don't, my punch this time won't be as light as last time. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly shocked. He hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, I really didn't lie to you. What I said is true, I didn't see the snow leopard, so I wasn't hurt. Hearing that LV Hushan still refused to admit, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but sigh, LV Hushan, since you said so, then I can only say sorry. Yuan Weiqing's voice just fell, and he suddenly kicked LV Hushan's body. LV Hushan suddenly screamed and was kicked out. He flew 3 or 4 meters away before he fell to the ground. He was in so much pain that he couldn't scream. Yuan Weiqing slowly came to LV Hushan and asked him, LV Hushan, how do you feel this time? LV Hushan gasped for breath on the ground for a while before he barely managed to sit up. His face had already turned pale, and his voice was trembling. Yuan Weiqing, what are you doing? I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing, Hushan, I didn't kick you, I didn't kick you hard enough. Why SSSS, STSSS, ITSSS, think he helped me, I think TSTSS. I Hushan, I think T me, I think. T-Tess, T-S's. Vice Hall Master Zhang, please believe me, I'm not lying. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren frowned and slowly came to the front of LV Hushan and asked, LV Hushan, since you're not lying, then tell me, is there any good way for you, with your martial arts, to get the spirit stones from the back of the mountain without suffering any injuries? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. I don't know, when I went to the back of the mountain, I didn't see the snow leopard. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, LV Hushan, it seems that you still don't dare to admit it. Do you want me to beat you harder? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, don't come over, I've already told you the truth, why don't you believe me? Zhang Chunren sighed, LV Hushan, if you're telling the truth, then you should have evidence. About Mai's matter, you only said that you were telling the truth, but did not show any evidence. How do you expect us to believe you? Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, LV Hushan, Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. If you have evidence, we naturally won't doubt you. But you don't have evidence, which proves that you're lying to us. LV Hushan broke out in a cold sweat and defended himself loudly. But I didn't, why would I lie to you? Think about it, before I became the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, I didn't have a good relationship with Hall Master Shui. Why would he help me? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment. Before he could say anything, Yuan Weiqing sneered, LV Hushan, maybe you took the initiative to side with Hall Master Shui at that time. Hall Master Shui helped you in order to nurture his own forces. LV Hushan, I think you don't have to explain anymore. This must be the reason. Otherwise, why would Hall Master Shui help you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren frowned. He turned his head to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, is what Yuan Weiqing said true? Hall Master Shui helped you because he wanted to rope you in? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, Vice Hall Master Zhang, you know that my martial arts are not very strong. Even if Hall Master Shui wants to win over some people, he should win over some people with stronger martial arts. For example, Yuan Weiqing's martial arts are better than mine. If Hall Master Shui wants to win over some of his own people, he must win over Yuan Weiqing. How could it be me? Vice Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. I'm definitely not lying. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment. He involuntarily turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked doubtfully, Yuan Weiqing, is what LV Hushan said true? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand, Vice Hall Master Zhang, this is all nonsense from LV Hushan. How could this be true? When I was the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, Vice Hall Master Zhang, you should know very well what happened. How could this be true? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, Zhang Chunren nodded, but he had some doubts in his heart. This was because he remembered very clearly that when Yuan Weiqing was chosen to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, he firmly disagreed. However, Hall Master Xue thought that Yuan Weiqing could be the protector. In the end, after several efforts, Yuan Weiqing successfully became the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Among them, he was the one who objected, but Hall Master Xue did agree. In other words, without Hall Master Xue, Yuan Weiqing would never be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Thinking of this, Zhang Chunren recalled LV Hushan's words and became even more suspicious. Looking at Zhang Chunren's suspicious gaze, LV Hushan was immediately overjoyed. He did not expect that Zhang Chunren would really believe him. Thinking of this, LV Hushan hurriedly said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, in my opinion, Yuan Weiqing is very suspicious. You saw it just now. No matter how we asked him to make a move, he refused to make a move on Hall Master Xue. Even if he wanted to betray you and hide behind Yi Tianhua, he didn't want to make a move on Hall Master Xue. In my opinion, he's Hall Master Xue's man. He's talking about me now because he doesn't want to make a move. Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered, Yuan Weiqing, I'm right. Back then, if it weren't for Hall Master Xue's help, how could you have become a protector? LV Hushan turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I'm right. Just now, Yuan Weiqing also told me that when Hall Master Xue asked him to be the protector, you opposed it, right? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren hesitated for a moment before slowly nodding. He turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked coldly, Yuan Weiqing, do you still remember this matter? Is that why you refused to make a move on Hall Master Xue? After hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Yuan Weiqing immediately knew that LV Hushan had led this matter to him again. He hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, don't listen to LV Hushan's nonsense. He wants to change the target. Did you forget that he just said that he could safely get the spirit stones back without any harm? If it weren't for Hall Master Xue's help, who would believe it? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren frowned again. He turned to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, by the way, you haven't made this matter clear yet. Show me the evidence now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Do you understand? Seeing that his plan had succeeded, Yuan Weiqing was immediately overjoyed. He hurriedly turned to look at LV Hushan and said loudly without waiting for LV Hushan's answer, LV Hushan, I advise you to admit it honestly. Even if you want to quibble about some things, do you think Vice Hall Master Zhang is so gullible that he will believe your lies? Seeing that his plan was about to succeed, LV Hushan didn't expect that Yuan Weiqing would take it back. He anxiously said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, this matter has nothing to do with me. If I knew the reason, I would have said it long ago. Why would I wait until now? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sneered, LV Hushan, if you don't say it now, don't blame me for being rude. LV Hushan was taken aback and hurriedly waved his hand, Vice Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. Hearing that LV Hushan was still quibbling, Yuan Weiqing didn't wait for him to finish his words and kicked him away fiercely. This time, Yuan Weiqing used more strength than last time. LV Hushan was in so much pain that his vision turned black. He screamed and fell to the ground. When he fell, his throat itched and he spat out a mouthful of blood, probably because of his injuries. Cough, cough. LV Hushan coughed violently and couldn't even say a word. Yuan Weiqing walked quickly to him and asked loudly, LV Hushan, are you going to tell the truth or not? If you don't, the next time will be worse than this time. Do you want to have a taste? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan wanted to say something, but his coughing was too severe. He could only feel anger in his heart, but he couldn't say a word. Zhang Chunren sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, I've already said that I just want to know the truth. Even if this matter has something to do with Hall Master Shui, I won't blame you. After all, it's all in the past. As long as you're loyal to me now, I can let bygones be bygones. Are you still unwilling to admit it? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly said loudly, LV Hushan, did you hear that? Vice Hall Master Zhang has already said that he won't blame you. If you continue to lie here, I'm afraid that the next time I hit you, it will be worse than this time. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's cold words, LV Hushan only felt a chill in his heart, which spread to his whole body in an instant. He couldn't help but shiver. LV Hushan looked up at Yuan Weiqing and said in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, I've already said that I really didn't lie to you. What I said is true. When I went to the back mountain, I really didn't see the snow leopard. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing frowned and said coldly, LV Hushan, don't tell me that you still don't know how to repent and continue to lie? LV Hushan shook his head. I didn't lie. What I said is true. Why don't you believe me? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I've already kicked you twice. Just now, I only hurt you a little. I didn't use my full strength. If you don't speak, I'm afraid that you won't be so lucky next time. Do you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was shocked. He naturally knew that what Yuan Weiqing said was true. If Yuan Weiqing really used his full strength just now, he would definitely be seriously injured. Thinking of this, LV Hushan only felt a burst of fear. He suddenly said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, since we are all from the same sect, please believe me this time. I really didn't lie. What I said is true. Yuan Weiqing sighed and slowly said, LV Hushan, it's not that I don't believe you. This kind of thing, if you were me, would you believe it? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. This kind of thing, even if it was him, he would also doubt it. Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, LV Hushan, what do you want me to say to you? You are obviously lying to us, but you always want us to believe your lies. You tell me, what should I do with you? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, whether you believe it or not, but what I said is true. I didn't lie to you. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly let out a sigh. LV Hushan, why are you so stubborn? Even if you admit it, Deputy Hall Leader Zhang has already said that we should let bygones be bygones. So what? LV Hushan, as long as you admit it, Deputy Hall Master Zhang will figure out the problem in this issue. As long as you listen to him in the future, nothing will happen. Don't you understand? After listening to Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sighed. But I didn't lie. Chapter 794. LV Hushan continued, Yuan Weiqing, what I said is true. I didn't lie to you. When I went to the back of the mountain, I didn't see the snow leopard. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing immediately sneered. LV Hushan, do you want to taste my fist? Yuan Weiqing's words startled LV Hushan. He hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't lie to you. What I said is true. I really didn't see anything. Yuan Weiqing turned to look at Zhang Chunren and sighed. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, LV Hushan still refuses to tell the truth. I think we can no longer be polite to him. Zhang Chunren nodded and stared at LV Hushan. He sneered and asked, LV Hushan, I'll give you one more chance. Are you going to tell the truth or not? LV Hushan was scared and waved his hand. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. I don't dare to lie to you. Before LV Hushan could finish his words, Yuan Weiqing immediately kicked him far away. This time, Yuan Weiqing used more strength than last time. LV Hushan kept screaming in the air until he flew 7 or 8 meters away. He fell to the ground and didn't make any sound. Seeing LV Hushan stop moving, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He hurriedly walked forward and checked carefully. Only then did he feel relieved. LV Hushan just fainted. There was nothing serious. Yuan Weiqing went forward and kicked LV Hushan for a while. LV Hushan slowly woke up. Ah! As soon as LV Hushan woke up, he felt extreme pain all over his body. He couldn't help but scream. However, his scream made his body hurt even more. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, why do you have to do this? I don't want to fight with you, but you don't want to tell the truth. I can't do anything about it. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and said slowly, LV Hushan, I don't think you should suffer. Hurry up and tell us. We are still good friends. Isn't that good? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan cursed in his heart. Who is your good friend? You are so ruthless to me. Do you really think of me as a good friend? However, although LV Hushan thought so in his heart, he did not dare to say it out loud. This was because he was now seriously injured, and Yuan Weiqing could easily get rid of him. Moreover, Vice Hall Master Zhang, who was even more powerful, was standing beside Yuan Weiqing. Thinking of this, LV Hushan secretly gritted his teeth and forced a smile. Yuan Weiqing, we have always been good friends. Among all the protectors of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, our relationship is the best, don't you think so? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing smiled and nodded. LV Hushan, it's precisely because of this reason that I don't want to make a move on you. You'd better hurry up and say it so as not to ruin the relationship between us brothers. LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, what I said is true. I will never lie to you. Think about it. Why would I lie to my brother? Don't you think so? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered in his heart. He did not forget that when he was seriously injured just now, LV Hushan had bullied him a lot. LV Hushan, I don't understand. Since you have already done it, why don't you admit it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and then slowly said, What's more, even if you don't admit it, do you think we will let you go? So, don't be stubborn. Hurry up and say it. It's okay. LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, what I said is true. Why don't you believe me? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, if you were me, would you believe those words? Hearing these words, LV Hushan was stunned. After a while, he forced a smile and nodded. Of course, since we are good brothers, why don't you believe your brother's words? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I treat you as a good brother, but you lied to me. Then, tell me, should I still treat you as a good brother? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, since we are good brothers, you should believe me. If you don't believe me, don't you treat me as a good brother? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing finally became impatient. He sneered. LV Hushan, do you think that because you are my brother, I don't dare to do anything to you? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly shocked. He hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, since we are good friends, you can't do anything to me. Slap. Before LV Hushan could finish his words, he was slapped in the face by the impatient Yuan Weiqing, causing him to scream in pain. LV Hushan covered his face and looked at Yuan Weiqing in disbelief. After a while, he suddenly shouted, Yuan Weiqing, you dare to hit me. You dare to hit my face. I'm not done with you. Before LV Hushan finished speaking, he was slapped by Yuan Weiqing again. Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, you think I don't dare? Let me try to show you whether I dare or not. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, I advise you to tell the truth quickly. Otherwise, will you feel happy? LV Hushan was so angry that his eyes were about to burst, but he really didn't dare to say anything. He couldn't beat Yuan Weiqing now. If he continued to speak, he was afraid that it would cause more trouble. Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that what I said is true. But if you don't believe me, what can I do? Yuan Weiqing sneered a few times. Suddenly, he kicked LV Hushan again. LV Hushan screamed and fell to the ground. This time, Yuan Weiqing used less strength, so he didn't faint. Yuan Weiqing walked forward slowly and said in a cold voice, LV Hushan, I advise you to admit it. Otherwise, he really can't blame me for being impolite. I was merciful just now. If you still don't treat me as a friend, then I can only not treat you as a friend. LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Although he wanted to admit it, he also knew that if he admitted it, he was afraid that things would become worse. What's more, he didn't lie about this matter. Back then, in order to complete this test, he also came to the back mountain alone with the idea of being seriously injured. But maybe he was lucky, or maybe it was because of other reasons, the chief physician didn't see the legendary snow leopard. Naturally, he could easily get the spirit stones. The reason why he said that to Yuan Weiqing just now was actually very simple. That was to let Yuan Weiqing know that he had received more kindness from Hall Master Shui, so he couldn't do anything. However, LV Hushan didn't expect that Yuan Weiqing still wouldn't be fooled. In the end, he didn't expect that his lies would evolve into this situation. LV Hushan was very regretful in his heart. He regretted saying such words just now. If he didn't say these words, wouldn't it be fine? Looking at LV Hushan, who lowered his head and didn't say anything, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, if you still treat me as a friend, quickly admit it. You don't want to ruin our relationship, right? LV Hushan shook his head in pain. Yuan Weiqing, what I said is true. When I went to the back mountain, I didn't see the snow leopard. And what I said to you just now, I was lying to you. I hope you can forgive me and don't blame me. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, if your martial arts were very high and the snow leopard was far from being your opponent, then I would believe you. However, your martial arts are definitely no match for the snow leopard. Yet, you were able to get the spirit stones from the back of the mountain without suffering any injuries. Without Hall Master Shui's help, you definitely wouldn't have been able to do this. LV Hushan, in fact, the matter is very clear now. Even if you didn't say it, we all know. The reason why we want you to admit it now is to give you a chance. As long as you admit it, we can still be good friends. At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he sneered and continued to speak. LV Hushan, if you still refuse to admit it and give up the chance we are giving you, then you really can't blame us for not being polite to you. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's cold words, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I really regret it. Why did I lie to you just now? In the end, the answer came so quickly. I really regret it. If I knew earlier, why would I lie? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, you mean that you still refuse to admit it? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, what I said is the truth. How do you want me to admit it? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, since you refuse to admit it, then don't blame me for not being polite. After saying this, Yuan Weiqing lifted a foot and slowly stepped on LV Hushan's leg. LV Hushan, what do you think will happen if I step on it hard? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly waved his hand and said in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, don't. I didn't lie to you. What I said is true. Before LV Hushan could finish his words, he suddenly screamed and reached out to cover his leg. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, why don't you say it? I really can't bear to do it. You are making it difficult for me. LV Hushan was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. His voice trembled as he said, Yuan Weiqing, I beg you. Don't step on me. What I said is true. Just believe me this time. I would never dare to lie to you. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, do you always lie to your good friend like this? LV Hushan shook his head. I don't. What I said is true. Yuan Weiqing used a little strength. LV Hushan, I advise you to say it. I didn't use much strength and you screamed so miserably. If you know what's good for you, quickly admit it. It will save you trouble. LV Hushan gasped for breath. After a while, he clenched his teeth and said in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, I beg you, please don't step on me. I admit it, okay? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing was suddenly overjoyed and asked with a smile, LV Hushan, then tell us, did Hall Master Shui help you to get the spirit stones in the back mountain? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan sighed and said with a crying voice, Yes, Hall Master Shui helped me. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing nodded with satisfaction. He turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said with a smile, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I am right. You see, LV Hushan admitted it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren frowned. He turned to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, is what you said just now true? You went to the back mountain to get the spirit stones and didn't get hurt at all because of Hall Master Shui's help? LV Hushan turned to look at Zhang Chunren. He hesitated for a moment and suddenly shouted, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I didn't. It was Yuan Weiqing who forced me to say it. In fact, Yuan Weiqing is Hall Master Shui's man. Speaking of this, he paused and took a few deep breaths before continuing, Yuan Weiqing was afraid that his relationship with Hall Master Shui would be known by us. So, he asked me to admit it to get rid of his suspicion. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, you know that for so many years, I have always been your man. You can't be deceived by Yuan Weiqing. Hearing LV Hushan not only deny it, but also want to put the blame on him, Yuan Weiqing was furious and shouted, LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. If you didn't have Hall Master Shui's help, you would never have been able to go to the back mountain. I didn't expect that you would still dare to quibble with the evidence. It seems that I was too gentle. After saying this, Yuan Weiqing was about to walk towards LV Hushan. When LV Hushan saw Yuan Weiqing coming over, he was so scared that he shouted, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, save me. Yuan Weiqing wants to kill me. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren sneered, Yuan Weiqing, don't do it. Let me ask him what's going on. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing naturally didn't dare to do it again. He could only shout angrily, LV Hushan, if you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for being rude. Looking at this guy who claimed to be a friend, LV Hushan knew that this guy was the most unreliable. If he listened to him, he might be harmed by him. Thinking of this, LV Hushan made up his mind. He gritted his teeth and said loudly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, let me tell you, Yuan Weiqing has the best relationship with Hall Master Shui. He was able to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County because of Hall Master Shui's help. Usually, Yuan Weiqing always says that Hall Master Shui is better than anyone else. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a second before saying slowly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, guess what Yuan Weiqing said to you in normal times. Chapter 795. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren frowned and said coldly, What did you say? Hearing their words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly shouted, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, you can't let LV Hushan do that. What he said is all fake. Zhang Chunren glanced at Yuan Weiqing coldly. Yuan Weiqing, since it's all fake, what are you afraid of? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. LV Hushan took the opportunity to speak loudly. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I still remember very clearly that when you stopped him from being the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, he was very angry and said several times that he wanted to teach you a lesson. He also said that if the secret thunder sect in the South County didn't have Hall Master Shui, the secret thunder sect in the South County would have been finished long ago. If you had left the secret thunder sect in the South County earlier, the secret thunder sect in the South County would have flourished long ago. Hearing LV Hushan's words, although Zhang Chunren didn't say anything, Yuan Weiqing could clearly see the anger in his eyes. Yuan Weiqing cursed in his heart and hurriedly said loudly, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, this is all LV Hushan's nonsense. How could I say such things?" LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, I've always treated you as a friend, so I didn't say it out loud. However, I really don't dare to compliment your attitude towards your friends, so I can only say these words. I hope Deputy Hall Master Zhang won't be blinded by you." Nonsense? Yuan Weiqing was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. "LV Hushan, you thought of this yourself. I didn't say it." Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I won't say such things. Everyone in the secret thunder sect in the South County knows that only you are the most capable person." LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, you said this now, but you didn't say this in the beginning. I remember very clearly that what I said just now was not a lie." Hearing this, Zhang Chunren slowly turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked coldly, "Yuan Weiqing, is what LV Hushan said true?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. "Vice Hall Master Zhang, you must not listen to his nonsense. LV Hushan is trying to sow discord between us. You must not believe him." When LV Hushan heard this, he immediately looked up to the sky and laughed. "Yuan Weiqing, since you say that I'm lying, then do you dare to swear that you're telling the truth?" Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment and did not answer immediately. Seeing this scene, Zhang Chunren became even more annoyed. "Yuan Weiqing, is what LV Hushan said true?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. "Vice Hall Master Zhang, this is all fake. LV Hushan is talking nonsense. None of it is true." Zhang Chunren nodded and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, since what LV Hushan said is false, why don't you dare to swear?" After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said loudly, "Well, since you don't believe me, then I swear." Seeing Yuan Weiqing swear again, LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, it's too late. Even if you swear, it's too late." At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. "Yuan Weiqing, if what I said just now was false, you would definitely swear immediately, but you hesitated. This is enough to show that you're afraid that the oath will come true, so you hesitated. Yuan Weiqing, the reason why you agreed to swear now is that you also know that if you don't swear, Vice Hall Master Zhang will suspect you. I'm afraid that the situation will be worse, so you gritted your teeth and swore, right?" Yuan Weiqing wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, pointed at LV Hushan and shouted sternly, "LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. No one will believe what you say." LV Hushan sneered, turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, "Vice Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. You should remember that when Hall Master Shui asked Yuan Weiqing to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, you didn't agree. Now that Yuan Weiqing knows about this, do you think he won't hold a grudge? Vice Hall Master Zhang, what I said is true. There is absolutely no lie." After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren frowned. He naturally knew the cause and effect of this matter. Back then, when Hall Master Shui wanted Yuan Weiqing to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, he did not agree because he wanted to arrange for one of his own to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. However, Hall Master Shui was the boss of the secret thunder sect in the South County after all. His words were more effective than his word. Therefore, in the end, Yuan Weiqing became the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Most importantly, this matter was not a secret. Yuan Weiqing would definitely know about it. Yuan Weiqing had no reason not to hate someone who blocked his future. Therefore, what LV Hushan said was very likely to be true. Thinking of this, Zhang Chunren turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a cold smile, Yuan Weiqing, LV Hushan is right. Back then, Hall Master Shui wanted you to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, but I did not agree. You have a reason to hate me. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, how can I hate you for this matter? The reason why you didn't let me be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County is because I'm not capable enough. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Zhang Chunren to answer him. He quickly thought about it in his heart and continued to speak. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I know that you are a strict person. You want to choose a truly talented person to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. We can't wait to support you on this point. How can we blame you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you believe what you said? I think you should stop denying it. If Hall Master Shui had listened to Vice Hall Master Zhang, how could you have become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County? It would be strange if you didn't blame Vice Hall Master Zhang for this matter. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. No, Vice Hall Master Zhang is doing this for the secret thunder sect in the South County. If he thinks someone is not qualified, they shouldn't be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Is there anything wrong with that? At this point, Yuan Weiqing glared at LV Hushan and asked loudly, LV Hushan, could it be that you don't want Vice Hall Master Zhang to be so strict? LV Hushan did not expect Yuan Weiqing to talk about him again. He hurriedly waved his hand. How can I not want to? The reason why Vice Hall Master Zhang is strict is that he wants to make the secret thunder sect in the South County stronger. As members of the secret thunder sect in the South County, how can we not support him? Yuan Weiqing sneered, LV Hushan, but according to Vice Hall Master Zhang's standards, you don't seem to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Hearing this, LV Hushan was stunned, but he quickly reacted and hurriedly said, Even if I can't be the protector, so what? As long as I work hard to cultivate martial arts, Vice Hall Master Zhang will let me be the protector sooner or later. Yuan Weiqing sneered, LV Hushan, since this is the case, then tell us what happened at the back of the mountain. Why is it that when others went to retrieve the spirit stones, they were more or less injured by the snow leopards, but only you, with such weak martial arts, were able to safely retrieve the spirit stones without any injuries? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren's eyes narrowed and he turned to look at LV Hushan. When LV Hushan saw Zhang Chunren's cold eyes, he was shocked and hurriedly said, Yuan Weiqing, you are disloyal to Vice Hall Master Zhang. Shouldn't you explain why you are speaking ill of Vice Hall Master Zhang behind his back? You can't wait to kick Vice Hall Master Zhang out of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Yuan Weiqing had just kicked the ball to LV Hushan. Before he could catch his breath, LV Hushan kicked the ball back. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said loudly, LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. It's all nonsense. You'd better tell us quickly how you got the spirit stones back without getting hurt. LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, I remember you said that if Vice Hall Master Zhang was kicked out of the secret thunder sect in the South County, you would find someone to avenge him, right? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren's eyes turned cold. He turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and shouted sternly, Yuan Weiqing, you still want to find someone to take revenge on me? Is that true? Seeing that Zhang Chunren was angry, Yuan Weiqing waved his hand in fear and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, How is that possible? With my martial arts, how can I beat you? Don't listen to LV Hushan's nonsense. What he said is false. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you mean that if you can beat Vice Hall Master Zhang, you will take revenge? Yuan Weiqing's face had turned a little pale. He waved his hand hard. LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. Even if I can beat Vice Hall Master Zhang, I will never take revenge. LV Hushan sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, we didn't know that your martial arts were so good before. We thought that you were only a little better than us. Yuan Weiqing once told me that as long as he found a few brothers to help him, he would definitely be able to defeat you. At that time, he would be able to take revenge. Hearing this, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, it's rare for you to hate me so much. I think, why don't we end the grudge today? What do you think? Yuan Weiqing didn't know that Zhang Chunren's martial arts were so good before. Now that he knew, he didn't dare to talk nonsense. Vice Hall Master Zhang, don't listen to his nonsense. What he said is not true. Don't take it seriously. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and took the opportunity to think of a countermeasure. Then he slowly said, Vice Hall Master Zhang, think about it. We are all from the Tanlei sect in the South County. How could we have any grudges? Don't you think so? Hearing this, LV Hushan said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, you told me this. Don't tell me that you don't remember. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and shouted, LV Hushan, you're talking nonsense. Do you have any evidence to prove that I said this? LV Hushan sneered and nodded. Yuan Weiqing, of course I have evidence. When you said this, you didn't say it to me alone. As long as we find the person who heard this, don't you think it counts as evidence? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing was stunned again. For a moment, he didn't answer LV Hushan immediately. Instead, he thought carefully in his heart. When he said this, was there anyone else beside him? Yuan Weiqing did say these words, but he didn't say it when he was sober. He said it when he was drunk. Humans were like that. They dared to say anything that they normally wouldn't dare to say, but when they were drunk, they dared to say anything. Of course, some words might be forgotten after they were sober, and the matter would be over. However, Yuan Weiqing never expected that LV Hushan would remember a few words he said when he was drunk. Yuan Weiqing clearly remembered what LV Hushan said in the beginning. He seemed to have said it, but he definitely didn't say the latter part. Because even if he was drunk, he would never have such thoughts. Zhang Chunren was the Vice Hall Master Zhang of the Tanlei sect in the South County. If he wanted to take revenge on him, he didn't want to stay in the Tanlei sect in the South County anymore. Therefore, how could Yuan Weiqing have such a stupid idea? Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing said loudly, LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. I know that what you said is false. Even if there is a witness, they are your people. You guys are working together to lie. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, why are you so stubborn? Now that things have come to this, I think you'd better admit it quickly. No matter what, you haven't done it yet. Although you're still in the plan, as long as you say it, I think Vice Hall Master Zhang will be magnanimous and forgive you. After hearing these familiar words, Yuan Weiqing was furious. LV Hushan, stop talking. You'd better explain your real relationship with Hall Master Shui quickly. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, do you still remember who Hall Master Shui brought with him every time he went out? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment. He thought for a moment and suddenly turned to look at LV Hushan. Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, That's right. Every time Hall Master Shui went out, he always brought LV Hushan with him. LV Hushan, can you tell me why this is happening? Hearing this question, LV Hushan was also stunned. Seeing that LV Hushan didn't answer, Zhang Chunren shouted sternly, LV Hushan, answer quickly. Why must Hall Master Shui bring you with him every time he goes out? Yuan Weiqing sneered. Vice Hall Master Zhang, do you still need to ask? Of course, it's because they have a good relationship. Hall Master Shui has already taken LV Hushan as one of his own, so he will bring him with him every time he goes out. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan reacted and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, it's not what you think. The reason why Hall Master Shui brings me out is that he feels that my martial arts are too low. Chapter 796. LV Hushan continued, Hall Master Shui thinks that my martial arts skills are too low. He's afraid that it'll be too dangerous for me to handle matters, so he brought me along. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered, LV Hushan, why is he worried about you? Isn't it because you two have a good relationship? Is there any other reason besides this? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, to be honest, Hall Master Shui has never brought me out alone for so many years. Speaking of which, I really envy you. When LV Hushan heard this, his face suddenly changed and he said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. Even if Hall Master Shui brought me out, it's definitely not what you think. Yuan Weiqing sighed, LV Hushan, if you have evidence, we naturally won't believe it. But what evidence do you have? You don't have it. Since you don't have it, how can we believe you? LV Hushan smiled bitterly and shook his head, but I have no relationship with Hall Master Shui. Don't you know that? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and suddenly exclaimed, LV Hushan, I suddenly remember. I remember that some time ago, Hall Master Shui seemed to have said that there were too many things in the gang and he wanted to find a deputy Hall Master. Could it be that the candidate for the deputy chief is you? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. No wonder Hall Master Shui treats you so well. It turns out that he wants to promote you to be the deputy Hall Master. I really didn't expect that you actually have such a relationship. It seems that there are many things that we didn't expect. Hearing this, LV Hushan didn't even think about it. He waved his hand and defended himself loudly. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. My martial arts skills are so low. How could Hall Master Shui choose me to be the deputy Hall Master? Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, why don't you understand why Hall Master Shui treated you so well? I think he wants to train you and let you be the Vice Hall Master first. Who knows, maybe even the position of Hall Master will be yours in the future. I really didn't expect this. Lu Hushan, it seems that I have to call you Hall Master Lu in the future. LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, you don't have any evidence. Don't talk nonsense. Otherwise people will laugh at you. Yuan Weiqing sighed and slowly said, LV Hushan, what evidence do you need? Think about it, your martial arts are the weakest among our protectors. To be honest, with your martial arts, it is impossible for you to be a protector. However, Hall Master Shui ignored the objections of so many people and insisted on promoting you to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in South County. Not only that, he was also afraid that you wouldn't be able to pass Shui Bao's test. He helped you because he wanted you to successfully become the protector. LV Hushan, you said that I don't have any evidence. Think about it. Even if you did something wrong during your time as a protector, did Hall Master Shui ever reprimand you? Think about it. If we did something wrong, wouldn't Hall Master Shui reprimand us? Think about it this way. Don't you understand Hall Master Shui's painstaking efforts? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was also stunned. He subconsciously turned his head to look at Hall Master Shui in the distance, and muttered in his heart. Could it be that Hall Master Shui really wanted to promote him to be the deputy Hall Master? Was this true? If he could really become the Deputy Hall Master, wouldn't he be on the same level as Deputy Hall Master Zhang? LV Hushan was really excited when he thought that he had the chance to become the Hall Master. Moreover, Yuan Weiqing's words made sense. His martial arts were not very high. After becoming a protector, he did make a few mistakes. He thought that Hall Master Shui would be furious. However, Hall Master Shui only smiled gently and the matter was over. Most importantly, once the other protectors of the Secret Thunder sect in South County made a mistake, Hall Master Shui would definitely be furious. Only he did not reprimand them. LV Hushan had always felt that he was too lucky because of this matter. He could escape Hall Master Shui's reprimand every time. At this moment, after hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, he carefully remembered that this was not a coincidence. Could it be that Hall Master Shui really valued him and wanted him to be the Hall Master of the Secret Thunder sect in South County in the future? Seeing that LV Hushan did not speak, Yuan Weiqing sighed again and said slowly, "LV Hushan, if not for today's matter, I believe that it won't be long before you become the protector of the Secret Thunder sect in South County. Now that I think about it, I really feel pity for you." Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head. "Yuan Weiqing, don't say any more. What you said is all fake. No one will believe you." After hearing the words of the two, Zhang Chunren suddenly frowned. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he looked coldly at LV Hushan. What Yuan Weiqing said was definitely not nonsense. Not long ago, Hall Master Shui did say that there were too many things in the gang. The two of them could not handle it alone, so he decided to add a new Vice Hall Master to help Zhang Chunren manage the gang's affairs. Although Hall Master Shui said it very well, Zhang Chunren was very clear about Hall Master Shui's true intentions. Originally, the Secret Thunder sect in South County only had two Hall Masters. One was Shui Zhijing, and the other was him. Although Zhang Chunren was only the Vice Hall Master, he still had a lot of power because there were only two Hall Masters. However, if another Vice Hall Master was added, then his power would definitely be at least half. Perhaps, in the end, all the power would belong to the new Vice Hall Master. Although Zhang Chunren knew about this, he did not know who the new Vice Hall Master was. Although he had asked Shui Zhijing had never said anything. He only told him that when the Vice Hall Master took office, he would naturally know. Shui Zhijing also said that the new Vice Hall Master was selected from the disciples of the sect. He knew all of them, so there was no need to introduce them. Zhang Chunren thought of Shui Zhijing's words in his mind and his heart suddenly moved. Could it be that what Yuan Weiqing said was true? Was the new Vice Hall Master really LV Hushan in front of him? If the truth of the matter was really like this, then there was a reasonable explanation for LV Hushan's refusal to make a move. Zhang Chunren even began to suspect that LV Hushan wanted to save Shui Zhijing. The more Zhang Chunren thought about it, the more likely this was because as long as Shui Zhijing was the Hall Master, LV Hushan would be able to sit firmly in the position of Vice Hall Master. Slowly, he would become the Hall Master of the Secret Thunder sect in South County. Thinking of this, Zhang Chunren turned to look at LV Hushan and asked loudly, "LV Hushan, is what Yuan Weiqing said true? Is Shui Zhijing going to promote you to be the Vice Hall Master? Tell me." Hearing Zhang Chunren's accusation, LV Hushan was so scared that his whole body trembled. He said loudly, "No, how could Shui Zhijing promote me to be the Vice Hall Master? This is all nonsense from Yuan Weiqing. Vice Hall Master Zhang, you must not believe it." At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to answer his question and continued to speak. "Vice Hall Master Zhang, think about it. My martial arts is the lowest among all the protectors. Even if he wants to promote the Vice Hall Master, it will definitely not be me." Speaking of this, LV Hushan's eyes suddenly lit up. He pointed at Yuan Weiqing and said coldly, "Vice Hall Master Zhang, it's him, it's Yuan Weiqing. I guess it must be him. Shui Zhijing must want to promote him to be the vice hall master. He said it now to sow discord between us. Vice hall master Zhang, don't be fooled. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren frowned. He gritted his teeth and asked, LV Hushan, do you have evidence? If you talk nonsense, don't blame me for being rude, understand? LV Hushan hurriedly nodded and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I am not talking nonsense. Think about it. Although Yuan Weiqing's martial arts is not the highest among us protectors, he is deeply liked by Shui Zhijing. Every time we do something, as long as it is simple, Shui Zhijing will definitely send Yuan Weiqing to do it. On the contrary, those more complicated and difficult tasks will be done by us. Vice Hall Master Zhang, think about it. We are all guardians. Why does Yuan Weiqing have to do simple missions while we have to do complicated missions? I think this is evidence. It can completely prove that Yuan Weiqing and Shui Zhijing are definitely in cahoot. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren frowned. When he was about to speak, Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, LV Hushan, you are talking nonsense. How do you know that the tasks assigned to me by Shui Zhijing are simple and your tasks are complicated? LV Hushan sneered, Of course I know. Don't forget that we are not the only protectors. Every time you are assigned a simple task, the other protectors have long been resentful. Don't you know? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly froze. He frowned and said slowly, LV Hushan, you are wrong. You think that the tasks I complete are simple, but in fact, the tasks I do are the kind that look simple but are actually very difficult to complete. For this matter, I am very unhappy in my heart. Since you said it today, then I will tell you. In fact, I would rather complete your seemingly complicated but simple tasks than my seemingly simple but complicated tasks. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. How can there be a seemingly simple but complicated task in the world? I think you are just quibbling. Shui Zhijing is so good to you. Are you still not satisfied? Yuan Weiqing suddenly sighed. LV Hushan, since you don't believe me, then I will tell you. You will understand my difficulties. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. For example, I received a mission in the past. It looked simple, but it was actually very complicated. The task was like this. Go to Black Mountain City in the East County and find Zhang San. Then, no matter how much Zhang San wants, you have to buy his family's heirloom jade. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, this task looks very simple, right? It feels like as long as you go to the East County, find Zhang San and listen to his price by his jade, and then bring it back easily. In your opinion, this task is like a tour. You spend all your time on the road, and you don't care about the length of time. You can see the mountains and rivers along the way. It is simply the best task. Do you all want to go? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan immediately sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you are right. When we saw you accept this task, we were so jealous. We are usually very busy and have no time to play. This time, you actually went to the East County to get gold coins from the gang. Who wouldn't be jealous of such a good thing? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, At first, I thought the same as you. I thought I got a good task. However, this seemingly simple task is actually really difficult to complete. It can even be said that it is quite dangerous. LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, it's over. Don't lie to us. Even if you go on a tour this time, it has nothing to do with us. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused and then said slowly, Speaking of which, we can only blame Shui Zhijing. He is too unfair. He let you do all the good things, and we can only do some laborious and unrewarding things. Yuan Weiqing frowned and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, in this case, I will tell you how complicated this matter is. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he continued. The specific address is Black Mountain City in the East County. Although Zhang San lives in Black Mountain City, he does not live in the city, but in the Barren Mountains. Near Black Mountain City, there is a Snow Leopard Valley. Zhang San lives in the Snow Leopard Valley. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and asked with a wry smile, LV Hushan, do you know why it is called Snow Leopard Valley? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan shook his head. Suddenly, his heart moved and he asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, are there many snow leopards in Snow Leopard Valley? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed and nodded. LV Hushan, you are right. There are indeed many snow leopards in Snow Leopard Valley. It is for this reason that it is called Snow Leopard Valley. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and then said slowly, LV Hushan, you should know very well how powerful snow leopards are. What's more, do you know how many snow leopards there are in Snow Leopard Valley? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan shook his head but did not answer. Yuan Weiqing sighed again, stretched out a finger and said loudly, I'm afraid there are more than 100. Chapter 797. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was taken aback. What, there are more than 100 snow leopards? Yuan Weiqing nodded with a wry smile. Yes, there are indeed more than 100 snow leopards in the Snow Leopard Valley. Maybe there are more. Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and sighed. LV Hushan, in order to see Zhang San, I can only go to the Snow Leopard Valley. The most important thing is that even if I want to find some reinforcements, I can't find them because I'm in the East County. There are no people there. It's impossible to go back to the South County to find help, so I can only grit my teeth and go. Do you understand? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he sighed and continued. It took me more than half a year to go to the East County. Maybe you think I was sightseeing and had a great time, but who knows that I was actually recuperating in the East County during that half a year? LV Hushan, there are more than 100 snow leopards. No matter how I hide, it's impossible to hide. Think about it, you have a headache when you meet one snow leopard, but I met more than 100. LV Hushan, I'm sure that if you went that time, you would never come back. I'm not looking down on you, but it's the truth. My martial arts are higher than yours, but I was seriously injured by those snow leopards. I had to recuperate for more than half a year before I barely came back. Yes, when I came back, I was fat. Do you think I'm living a good life? But you're wrong. If a person is sick and lies in bed every day, how can he not be fat? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, what you said is false. Anyway, it's a matter of the East County. No one knows. You can say whatever you want. However, I won't believe what you said. Seeing that LV Hushan didn't believe his words, Yuan Weiqing was furious. LV Hushan, what I said is true. How can it be false? LV Hushan sneered and said, Since Zhang San lives in such a dangerous place, didn't Hall Master Shui tell you? When he heard LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. It's not that Hall Master Shui didn't want to talk about it. It's because the two places are too far apart. Zhang San moved to Snow Leopard Valley later on, so Hall Master Shui doesn't know the truth. Hearing this, LV Hushan immediately looked up to the sky and laughed. Yuan Weiqing, I understand. I finally understand. LV Hushan lowered his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, it seems that Hall Master Shui is still on your side. He originally wanted to give you a simple mission, but your luck is really bad. Zhang San moved to the Snow Leopard Valley before you went to look for him. Who can you blame for this? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, you have to repay kindness. Although you have encountered setbacks, it's your bad luck. No matter what, Hall Master Shui just wanted to find a simple task for you to do. Isn't this enough to explain the problem? Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. LV Hushan, Hall Master Shui said that he didn't know that Zhang San moved to Snow Leopard Valley, but who can guarantee that he really didn't know? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, think about it. If Hall Master Shui knew that Zhang San had moved to Snow Leopard Valley and still asked me to do this mission, would he still be on my side? LV Hushan smiled coldly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, don't quibble. Hall Master Shui is on your side because the two of you are originally on the same team. Most importantly, I believe that Hall Master Shui will promote you to be the Deputy Hall Master soon, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was a little angry and shouted sternly, LV Hushan, according to this, I think the person who has a good relationship with Hall Master Shui should be you, right? LV Hushan, think about it carefully. Your missions are always simple. Why is that? Isn't it because Hall Master Shui has a good relationship with you? That's why he assigned you simple missions. Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, you're talking nonsense. Every time I'm assigned a mission, I'm assigned the most complicated and difficult mission. How can it be compared to yours? LV Hushan paused for a moment, then said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, look at the mission assigned to you. Go to Black Mountain City in the East County to find Zhang San and bring back a piece of jade. It's so simple. Just go there and bring back a piece of jade. There's nothing complicated about it. It's very straightforward. But look at me. Go to Linshui City to find Li Si and buy a treasure map from him for 100 gold coins. Then, follow the instructions on the treasure map and find the item on the treasure map. Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, that's a treasure map. You only give me 100 gold coins to buy a treasure map. Then, after buying it, I have to follow the instructions on the treasure map and bring back the item on the treasure map. This mission, as long as you think about it, I'm afraid it's very complicated. Yuan Weiqing, compared to your mission, which one is more difficult? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed. According to the name of the mission, of course your mission is more difficult. LV Hushan snorted, that's it. The mission assigned to you is simple, but the mission assigned to me is complicated. Doesn't this explain the problem? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, do you really think I don't know how you completed the mission? Hearing this question, LV Hushan's face changed. Of course I went through a lot of hardships to complete this mission. You're talking nonsense? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, don't lie to me. In fact, I already know how you completed the mission. It's just that I didn't say it. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what do you know? Yuan Weiqing sneered. Of course I know how you completed the mission. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, this mission sounds complicated, but in fact, it's not complicated at all. The treasure map in Li Si's hands is actually not something valuable. I know that Hall Master Shui gave you 100 gold coins. In the end, you didn't spend a single gold coin, right? LV Hushan's face suddenly turned ugly. Yuan Weiqing, you're talking nonsense. If I didn't spend the gold coins, would Li Si give the treasure map to me? Yuan Weiqing nodded, of course not. The treasure map belongs to Li Si. Why would he give it to you? Hearing this, LV Hushan heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Yuan Weiqing speak again. LV Hushan, although Li Si wouldn't give the treasure map to you, you wouldn't buy it because there's no need to buy it. The things on the treasure map aren't anything rare. They're just some mineral deposit. I remember very clearly that the mineral on the treasure map is the fire spirit rock. And these fire spirit rocks are also in Li Si's house. So you only spent 10 gold coins to buy a piece of fire spirit rock. LV Hushan, am I right? Hearing this, LV Hushan's face became very ugly. Yuan Weiqing, you're talking nonsense. Is this true? Yuan Weiqing sighed. Not only do I know that you only spent 10 gold coins to buy the fire spirit rock, but I also know that you didn't return the remaining 90 gold coins to the gang. Instead, you kept them for your own use, right? Hearing this, LV Hushan's forehead finally broke out in cold sweat. Trembling, he asked, Yuan Weiqing, how did you know? Looking at LV Hushan's sweaty appearance, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, you think this is a secret. But in fact, in the gang, many people know about it. Not only do I know, even Hall Master Shui probably knows about this matter. LV Hushan, it's because of this reason that I suspect that your relationship with Hall Master Shui is the best. I think if it was someone else who dared to take the remaining gold coins for himself, Hall Master Shui would definitely not let him off. Only you, Hall Master Shui, only smiled and didn't say anything. LV Hushan, tell me, if it wasn't for your good relationship, how could Hall Master Shui just smile? Hearing this, LV Hushan's heart suddenly moved. He also remembered that although the matter of the remaining 90 gold coins was done covertly, as long as someone went to Li Si's house to inquire about it, they would naturally know what happened. Thinking of this, he suddenly understood that Hall Master Shui probably really knew about this matter. But the question was, why didn't Hall Master Shui say anything? Hall Master Shui was an upright person. If someone dared to make a mistake, no matter who it was, even if it was Vice Hall Master Zhang, he would definitely reprimand him. But why didn't Hall Master Shui say anything about him secretly hiding the 90 gold coins? Even his attitude towards him didn't change. LV Hushan was really somewhat puzzled. Could it be that it was really like what Yuan Weiqing said, that Hall Master Shui actually had the best relationship with him? Looking at LV Hushan, who lowered his head and didn't say anything, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, do you still remember that there was a disciple in our gang who asked him to do something? We originally gave him 20 gold coins, but in the end, he spent 18 gold coins and was left with 2 gold coins. But because he didn't return the 2 gold coins, what happened in the end? LV Hushan, you should know very well, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing mention this matter, LV Hushan naturally knew very well. This was because there weren't many things going on in the secret Thunder sect of the South County. Once something happened, everyone would definitely know. Yuan Weiqing nodded and continued, LV Hushan, the disciple who secretly left the 2 gold coins was kicked out of the secret Thunder sect of the South County because of these 2 gold coins. Think about it, how big is the gap between the two of you? He only left 2 gold coins and was kicked out of the secret Thunder sect of the South County. As for you, 90 gold coins. You left 90 gold coins, but Hall Master Shui didn't have any intention of blaming you. Tell me, how can we not be suspicious? At this point, Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, to be honest, sometimes I even thought that you were Hall Master Shui's son. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so good to you. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and subconsciously glanced at the unconscious Hall Master Shui. He was a little puzzled. He and Hall Master Shui were unrelated. Why would Hall Master Shui treat him like this? What Yuan Weiqing said just now was true. The disciple who secretly left the 2 gold coins was indeed kicked out of the secret Thunder sect of the South County. The problem was, why was he fine after leaving 90 gold coins? Could it be that in Hall Master Shui's heart, he was really the next Vice Hall Master? Thinking of this, LV Hushan's heart suddenly moved. He felt a little emotional. If today's matter didn't happen, wouldn't his future be bright? Looking at the smile on LV Hushan's face, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, I think you'd better admit it. You have the best relationship with Hall Master Shui. The reason why you can become the protector of the secret thunder sect of the South County is all because of Hall Master Shui's help, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan came to his senses. He hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, No, Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong. Hall Master Shui didn't help me. All of this is due to my own efforts. Hearing LV Hushan's reply, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, one should know how to repay kindness. Hall Master Shui has helped you so many times and even wants to promote you to be the deputy Hall Master. Is this how you repay him? If you're such a person, I really feel sorry for Hall Master Shui. When Zhang Chunren heard Yuan Weiqing's words, a cold light flashed in his eyes. LV Hushan, is what Yuan Weiqing said true? LV Hushan looked at Zhang Chunren's cold gaze and was shocked. He hurriedly waved his hand. Vice Hall Master Zhang, how could this be true? It's all Yuan Weiqing's nonsense. How could Hall Master Shui help me? We didn't know each other before. We only got to know each other when we went to the secret thunder sect of the South County. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, to be honest, I don't believe that you didn't know each other before. Otherwise, why would Hall Master Shui help you instead of anyone else? LV Hushan hurriedly explained, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. Hall Master Shui should be helping you. Speaking up to this point, LV Hushan paused and sorted out his thoughts. Then, he slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, every time you were assigned a mission, although the mission you encountered was somewhat complicated, others didn't know about it. Let me say, Hall Master Shui thought that the mission he gave you was simple. He didn't expect things to become so complicated. Therefore, I think that you and Hall Master Shui are the best. In the future, the person who will be promoted to Vice Hall Master will definitely be you. Chapter 798. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was furious. LV Hushan, let me tell you, when Hall Master Shui assigned me the mission, he should know better than anyone how difficult it was. Do you think that as the Hall Master of the secret thunder sect in the South County, he doesn't even know the difficulty of the mission? How is that possible? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, why is it impossible? Just like what you said just now, maybe when our people went to investigate, Zhang San was still living in the Black Mountain City, but when our people came back, Zhang San moved to the Snow Leopard Valley. Our two places are so far away, it's not easy to go back and forth. Do you think that Hall Master Shui would go to find out more before assigning the mission? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I don't want to talk about those things. I just want to say that if it was just once, I wouldn't say anything. This might just be a coincidence, but it happens every time, so I have to be suspicious. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, how is that possible? This time is indeed a coincidence. At other times, I think the missions that Hall Master Shui assigned to you were very simple. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. I remember that last year I asked you to complete a mission. Moreover, Hall Master Shui specifically asked you to do it. Was that mission also a complicated one? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, are you talking about the mission last year? LV Hushan nodded. Yes, the mission last year. You can't say that it was very complicated, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, of course I remember the mission last year. How could I forget? Seeing Yuan Weiqing's expression, LV Hushan frowned and asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that the mission last year was also very complicated? Yuan Weiqing sighed and nodded. If it's just complicated, then I won't say anything. But this mission is complicated and quite dangerous. If you think this is a simple mission, then I'm willing to trade with you and let you have a taste of how complicated this simple mission is." LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, do you think that I will believe you?" Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. "Since you want to know, I'll tell you how complicated and difficult it is." Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. "LV Hushan, the problem is like this. There is a customer who wants to buy 10 thunderclap pills and needs us to send them over. LV Hushan, isn't this mission very simple?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, he nodded. "Of course. It's just delivering something to the client. How complicated can it be?" Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, "For so many years, our Tantric Thunder sect in the South County has always followed the principle of customer first to complete all kinds of transactions. I originally thought that asking me, a protector, to deliver something was to show respect to the client. However, I was wrong. The truth is not like this." Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned. "Yuan Weiqing, is there something complicated about this?" Yuan Weiqing sighed and said with a wry smile, "LV Hushan, do you know where the client receives the goods?" LV Hushan shook his head. "I don't know, could it be?" Speaking of this, LV Hushan suddenly exclaimed, "Yuan Weiqing, does the client have a lot of requirements?" Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sneered. "LV Hushan, you are wrong. This customer's request is not much at all. It can even be said that he has no request. As long as we deliver the goods, he will be very satisfied with us." Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, since the client doesn't have any special requirements, as long as the goods are delivered, is there anything complicated?" Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly gritted his teeth and shouted, "Of course there is a big problem. LV Hushan, do you know where he asked me to deliver the goods?" LV Hushan asked in confusion, "Yuan Weiqing, is the delivery address not in the South County?" Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and sighed. "LV Hushan, to tell you the truth, the delivery address is Green Mountain Villa. And the distance is not far. Go west from here, about 30 miles away." Hearing this, LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, since the distance is not far and it is a villa, it should be a very good task. Why do you say it is complicated?" Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. "LV Hushan, do you know why the people in Green Mountain Villa want to buy Thunderbolt pills?" LV Hushan shook his head. "Although I don't know the specific reason, maybe they know that the Thunderbolt pills we produce are very powerful, so they want to try it?" Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. "LV Hushan, you are too naive. There are all kinds of people in this world. If you know why they want to buy Thunderbolt pills, you won't say that." Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. "I didn't know the reason before I went. After I arrived at the place, I found out that Green Mountain Villa had been surrounded by people. If outsiders wanted to go, it was impossible for them to let them in. LV Hushan, the people who surrounded Green Mountain Villa all had a deep grudge with the people of Green Mountain Villa. They came here to take revenge. However, the people of Green Mountain Villa were not ordinary people, so they were frozen there. Under such circumstances, LV Hushan, do you think they would let me go to Green Mountain Villa?" Hearing this, LV Hushan took a deep breath. He actually had a lot of thoughts in his mind, but he never thought that it would turn out like this. Green Mountain Villa was surrounded by enemies. Then, they would definitely not let Yuan Weiqing in. On one hand, these people did not want Green Mountain Villa to increase their strength. On the other hand, Yuan Weiqing brought Thunderbolt pills to the people of Green Mountain Villa. It was even more impossible for them to let him go. Thinking of this, although LV Hushan was just listening, cold sweat appeared on his forehead. "Yuan Weiqing, I think you should come back. they won't let you go anyway. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. LV Hushan, my thoughts are the same as yours. It's just 10 thunderbolt pills. It's not a big deal, so I sent someone back to ask Hall Leader Shui if I could go back. In the end, guess what Hall Leader Shui said? Looking at Yuan Weiqing's pale face, LV Hushan asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that Hall Leader Shui doesn't allow you to come back? Yuan Weiqing took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. That's right. Hall Leader Shui said that the customer comes first. Even if it's dangerous, we have to complete the mission. This, LV Hushan took a deep breath and asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that you didn't make it clear to Hall Leader Shui? Yuan Weiqing smiled coldly and shook his head. LV Hushan, how is that possible? I wrote a letter and asked someone to pass it back. Isn't that clear enough? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he snorted and continued. LV Hushan, in such a dangerous situation, Hall Leader Shui still wants me to complete the mission and deliver the 10 thunderbolt pills to the customer. Don't you think it's ridiculous? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan nodded silently. He sighed but did not say anything. He suddenly realized that the missions he took in the past were indeed very simple. Most importantly, even if he couldn't complete the mission, Hall Leader Shui would definitely not blame him. Instead, he would take the initiative to persuade him to return. Looking at the silent LV Hushan, Yuan Weiqing suddenly shouted, LV Hushan, it's only 10 thunderbolt pills. Why did Hall Leader Shui insist that I deliver them to such a dangerous place? I remember clearly that LV Hushan, you had a customer who needed 100 thunderbolt pills. In the end, you didn't deliver them. How was it? Hall Leader Shui didn't blame you, right? I heard that he took the initiative to ask you to return, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan nodded silently again as he recalled what had happened that time. That incident wasn't complicated. LV Hushan brought people to deliver the goods. In the end, the other party's attitude wasn't good. LV Hushan was in a bad mood, so he directly brought the 100 thunderbolt pills back. He thought that Hall Leader Shui would severely scold him. But he didn't expect that Hall Leader Shui didn't even say a single harsh word. Instead, he took the initiative to comfort him and asked him not to take it to heart. It was fine for him to take back the 100 thunderbolt pills. However, Hall Leader Shui didn't allow Yuan Weiqing to return the 10 thunderbolt pills. What was going on? LV Hushan was really puzzled. What was going on? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, do you know how much danger I went through in order to complete that mission? LV Hushan shook his head. I don't know. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, of course you don't know. You don't know how much I suffered. LV Hushan, do you know how those people who surrounded the Green Mountain Manor treated me when they knew that I had to go in? Hearing this, LV Hushan was shocked and hurriedly asked, Yuan Weiqing, why? Do those people dare to make a move on you? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, in order to prevent the thunderbolt pills in my hands from falling into the hands of the people of Green Mountain Manor, they will definitely make a move on me. LV Hushan asked in a trembling voice, Don't tell me that they don't care even if you're from the secret Thunder sect of the South County? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, no matter what, this is still a blessing. They still have some scruples about the secret Thunder sect of the South County. At least, even if they want to make a move on me, they won't dare to do it openly. They can only do it secretly. LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Even if they do it secretly, you won't be able to handle it, right? Yuan Weiqing sighed. What can I do? In order to complete this mission, I'm going all out. Although I know that they will definitely make a move on me, I must send the things to the manor as soon as possible. But you also know that they won't let me in, so I can only go secretly. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, so I waited until they were all asleep at night and secretly left the camp, preparing to go to Green Mountain Manor in the dark. Unfortunately, they were already on guard, so I was discovered not long after I left the camp. Hearing this, LV Hushan hurriedly asked, Yuan Weiqing, you were discovered by them, so they caught you back? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing's eyebrows suddenly rose. He said with some annoyance, LV Hushan, it's not that simple. Those people are very bad. Although they knew that I secretly ran out, they pretended not to know. Even if I shouted, they pretended not to hear. LV Hushan frowned. In that case, I think you should go directly to Green Mountain Manor and send the things there first. Yuan Weiqing shook his head with a wry smile. LV Hushan, why do I say that those people are very bad? It's because they knew it was me when I left the camp. But even though they knew it was me, they pretended not to know me in order to control me. Then, they shot arrows at me. Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and said with a wry smile, those people's archery is really powerful. They shot a total of 2 arrows, and each arrow hit one of my legs. There was no injury anywhere else. Don't you think it's powerful? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly shocked. Yuan Weiqing, both of your legs were shot by arrows. Doesn't that mean you can't walk? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, this is the result that they wanted. They knew that I was going to leave, and they knew that they couldn't stop me. So, in the dark night, they took the opportunity to injure my leg with arrows. Then, even if they wanted me to leave, I wouldn't be able to. LV Hushan opened his mouth in surprise. After a while, he sighed, I really didn't expect these people to be so cruel. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, I remember that you were not the only one who delivered the things that time. There should be 2 other people, right? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, you are right. At that time, in addition to me, there were indeed 2 disciples. However, when I discovered the problem, I had already sent a disciple back to report. Chapter 799. LV Hushan smiled and said, Yuan Weiqing, since your leg is injured, why don't you let another disciple deliver the item? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sighed again. LV Hushan, it's not that simple. At that time, I did do what you said. But the result? Sigh. At this point, he paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for an answer, he let out a long sigh and continued to speak. In order to complete the task as soon as possible and go back to recuperate, I let that disciple deliver the thunderbolt pill at night. In order to be safe, I purposely pulled those people to drink to distract their attention. But unfortunately, these people were too cunning. They deliberately pretended not to know and kept drinking with me. I thought the plan was a success, but when they carried that disciple back, I found out that they already knew about my plan. Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned and asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that that disciple was also injured in his leg? Yuan Weiqing nodded and stretched out 2 fingers. He smiled bitterly and said, it's exactly the same. They both got 2 arrows in their legs. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan couldn't help but laugh. He knew that this was wrong and hurriedly held it back. Yuan Weiqing, then you're really unlucky. In order to deliver the thunderbolt pill, they actually injured your leg. Yuan Weiqing sighed. Both my and that disciple's legs were injured. Even if we wanted to go back to report, we couldn't do it, let alone continue to deliver the thunderbolt pill. So helplessly, we could only recuperate there. But even if we want to recuperate, it's not that easy in their territory. Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't tell me they don't allow it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. No, they promised to take care of us. But we have to spend our own gold coins to eat and buy medicine. LV Hushan nodded. That's what they should do. This is nothing. At least they know what's good for them. Otherwise, if they annoy us, they'll be in trouble. Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. LV Hushan, you don't understand. The cost of eating and buying medicine is too huge. I've been recuperating at his place for half a month, so I owe them a lot of gold coins. It took me a long time to pay them back. LV Hushan looked at Yuan Weiqing and asked in confusion, Yuan Weiqing, what's going on? Yuan Weiqing sighed. The food and medicine are expensive. There's really no other way. LV Hushan frowned. Could it be that they're trying to harm you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, to be honest, there really isn't one. Hearing this, LV Hushan was a little puzzled. Since there isn't any, why is it so expensive? Yuan Weiqing sneered. Lu Hushan, do you know what kind of place that is? Green Mountain Villa is deep in the mountains, outsiders don't know. That place was very far away from human habitation. It would cost a lot to transport food and medicinal herbs. Especially when I was injured at that time, I had to eat something good to nourish my body. As a result, I spent a lot of gold coins. And the medicinal herbs. Every time the shop assistant comes to deliver the herbs to me, the travel fee alone is much more expensive than the cost of the herbs. How can I not spend gold coins? Hearing this, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, it seems that it's really hard for you. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said, LV Hushan, how is it? Do you still think this task is simple? LV Hushan smiled bitterly and shook his head. It's not simple. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a while before he slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, this isn't Hall Master Shue's intention. It's just that your luck is really bad. When you arrived, you just happened to arrive at a deadlock between the two sides. That's why so many things have happened. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, you're too naive. Do you think that Hall Master Shue doesn't know all this? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a while. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he sneered and continued. LV Hushan, do you know why the people of Green Mountain Villa bought the Thunderbolt pills? LV Hushan shook his head. Of course it's because they want to have more confidence in the battle. Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. LV Hushan, why don't you understand? The people of Green Mountain Villa bought the Thunderbolt pills at that time because they wanted us to be their shield. Do you understand? And I'm the stupid person who was sent to be their shield. LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, no, you must be thinking too much. Hall Master Shue definitely doesn't know. If he knew, maybe he would have sent me. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and sneered. LV Hushan, do you think that Hall Master Shue didn't know that the two sides were fighting when they bought the Thunderbolt pills? That's impossible. Hall Master Shue knows everything, but he still sent me. I already know what he's thinking. LV Hushan shook his head. That's impossible. Hall Master Shue is very good. It's definitely not like what you said. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, Hall Master Shue is good only to you. As for me, Humph, if this is considered good, then I have nothing to say. After listening to Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned. He also realized that Yuan Weiqing didn't seem to be unlucky, but Hall Master Shue did indeed give him difficult tasks. However, even if LV Hushan knew this fact, he would never say it out loud. LV Hushan frowned. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said with a smile, Yuan Weiqing, I understand. The reason why Hall Master Shue treats you like this is because he thinks highly of you. Yuan Weiqing, is Hall Master Shue trying to groom you to become the next Vice Hall Master? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly became angry. LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. If Hall Master Shui wants me to be the Deputy Hall Master, why would he give me such difficult tasks? Not just once or twice, but all of them. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his words and continued to speak. LV Hushan, you said that Hall Master Shui is training me. Then let me ask you, what's the use of me if I die in these tasks? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, if you want to be a Hall Master, you must pay a price in order to be rewarded. Look at us. We only do simple tasks every day. No matter how long we do it, Hall Master Shui will never take a fancy to us. Your tasks are better. As long as you complete them, Hall Master Shui will immediately understand your ability. Think about it. How many such tasks have you done? I think Hall Master Shui already has an idea. Maybe when we go back this time, he will announce you as the next Deputy Hall Master. Don't you think so? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hesitated for a moment. However, when he thought of the difficulty of those tasks, his anger surged again. LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. I don't believe what you said. If things are really like what you said, there should be a limit. How can all the complicated tasks be given to me? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I also want to do a complicated task. However, Hall Master Shui doesn't trust me. Therefore, I can only do those simple and boring tasks every day. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly understood LV Hushan's thoughts. He knew that LV Hushan wanted to divert his attention and hurriedly said, LV Hushan, then let's not talk about this anymore. I just want to know how you were able to get the spirit stones without any injuries when you went to the back mountain. Seeing Yuan Weiqing's reaction, LV Hushan sighed in his heart and hurriedly said, Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that no one helped me. I was lucky. When I went there, I didn't see anything. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing didn't want to talk nonsense with him anymore. He turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren and sneered. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I think if we don't teach him a lesson, he won't tell the truth. Zhang Chunren frowned and turned his head to look at LV Hushan. He sighed. LV Hushan, I advise you to tell the truth. Otherwise, when Yuan Weiqing takes action, it will be too late for you to regret. Hearing the two's words, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, it's nothing. Don't listen to his nonsense. I was really lucky. Before LV Hushan finished his words, Zhang Chunren's eyes turned cold. He turned his head and winked at Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing immediately understood. He stepped forward and snorted. LV Hushan, I don't want to listen to your sophistry. I'll ask you one more time. Are you going to tell the truth? LV Hushan was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. I didn't. Before LV Hushan finished his words, he was kicked away by Yuan Weiqing. This kick was extremely ruthless. Even though LV Hushan was in midair, he was still screaming in pain. He flew up into the air and landed heavily on the ground. His screams stopped abruptly, and he was no longer moving. Yuan Weiqing quickly walked to LV Hushan. Seeing that he had fainted, he directly kicked him awake. As soon as LV Hushan woke up, he screamed in pain. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. LV Hushan, I advise you to tell me. If you don't tell me, I'm afraid the next time will be more ruthless. Do you believe it? LV Hushan was in so much pain that he was almost out of breath. He didn't even hear Yuan Weiqing's words clearly. He just screamed there. After a while, LV Hushan barely recovered. He looked up at Yuan Weiqing and said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, you're so ruthless. You hit me so hard. Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, this is just the beginning. If you don't tell the truth, the next time will be more ruthless. Are you willing to try? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was shocked. He trembled and wanted to explain, but he didn't dare to say it. He was afraid that Yuan Weiqing wouldn't wait for him to finish and would hit him again. Seeing that LV Hushan dared not to answer him, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown. He sneered and asked, LV Hushan, since you don't want to say it, do you think I hit you too hard? LV Hushan hurriedly shook his head and said in a trembling voice, No, don't hit me again. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, since you don't want me to hit you, why don't you say it? As long as you tell the truth, we won't blame you. What are you afraid of? Hearing these words, LV Hushan hurriedly said, Yuan Weiqing, what I just said is true. Why are you? LV Hushan just said this when he saw Zhang Chuanren's cold eyes. He was so scared that he hurriedly stopped talking. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, we used to be brothers and good friends. However, you even lied to your good friend. Are you worthy of me, your good friend? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was so angry that he screamed in his heart. If possible, I don't want you as my good friend. However, he only dared to think these words in his heart. He absolutely didn't dare to say it out loud. What should I do? LV Hushan endured the pain in his body and quickly thought of a way. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I understand. I finally understand. Looking at LV Hushan shouting loudly, Zhang Chunren couldn't help but frown. He slowly came in front of LV Hushan and asked in a deep voice, LV Hushan, what do you understand? LV Hushan suddenly turned and pointed at Yuan Weiqing. He laughed and said, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, I finally understand. It turns out that Yuan Weiqing is really Hall Master Shui's man. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing and Zhang Chunren were shocked at the same time. Yuan Weiqing asked sharply, LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? How can I be Hall Master Shui's man? Zhang Chunren turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, let LV Hushan finish his words. Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. Although he wanted to defend himself, he didn't dare to say it again. LV Hushan reached out and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Then he said loudly, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, what Yuan Weiqing said just now is false. He is lying to us? Zhang Chunren frowned and said, False? What is false? LV Hushan sneered and said, Of course, what he said just now is all false. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but ask loudly, LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? What is false? I think you are the one who is false. LV Hushan sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, do you think what you said is flawless and no one will doubt it? Let me tell you, you are wrong. What is true cannot be false, and what is false cannot be true. Yuan Weiqing, I advise you to be obedient and say it. Otherwise, Deputy Hall Master Zhang will never let you go. Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and shouted, LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and say that you went to the back of the mountain. LV Hushan sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, what's wrong? Don't you dare to let me say it? Chapter 800. Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, let LV Hushan finish. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, LV Hushan was overjoyed and hurriedly said, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, do you know that Yuan Weiqing praises Hall Master Shui every day behind your back? Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at LV Hushan and asked in a deep voice, Is there anything else? LV Hushan sneered, Of course there is. In addition to praising Hall Master Shui, Yuan Weiqing also says bad things about you behind your back every day. He said, You're talking nonsense. Before LV Hushan could finish his words, he was interrupted by Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing was about to speak when he saw Zhang Chunren's cold gaze. The next moment, Zhang Chunren stretched out his hand and sent Yuan Weiqing flying. Yuan Weiqing, didn't you hear that I told you not to speak? Seeing Yuan Weiqing screaming miserably as he was sent flying, LV Hushan immediately felt very comfortable in his heart. He hurriedly said, Deputy Hall Chief Zhang, Yuan Weiqing doesn't put you in his eyes. How dare he disobey your order? Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at LV Hushan and said coldly, LV Hushan, continue. What else did Yuan Weiqing say? LV Hushan hurriedly said, Deputy Hall Master Zhang, you don't know that Yuan Weiqing said a lot of bad things about you behind your back. He said that sooner or later, Hall Master Shui will drive you out of the Tanlei sect in the South County. This is the most satisfying thing. Hearing this, the coldness in Zhang Chuanren's eyes became even colder. Anything else? Seeing that this news was not enough, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and hurriedly spoke again. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, Yuan Weiqing also said that if he becomes the Hall Master, he will definitely settle the score with you. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to answer his question and continued to speak. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, there is more important. Yuan Weiqing seems to have said that it won't be long before Hall Master Shui drives you out of the Tanlei sect in the South County. After hearing these words, Zhang Chunren suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, who was getting up, and shouted sternly, Yuan Weiqing, is what LV Hushan said true? Hearing Zhang Chuanren's question, Yuan Weiqing didn't dare to admit it. He was so scared that he waved his hand and ignored the severe pain on his body. Hall Master, it's all nonsense. Hall Master Zhang, it's LV Hushan. How could such a thing happen? LV Hushan loudly said, Yuan Weiqing, in front of Vice Hall Master Zhang, of course you won't admit it. But I still remember that at Chuanren's at Chunren at him. At that time, you said that time was at Zhang at him at him sat at him. He you at back at that time Hushan. You. At you. At you, you. You uses, is. You is at. You. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, since you dare to say it, why don't you dare to admit it? Yuan Weiqing glared at him and shouted, LV Hushan, I didn't say it. Why should I admit it? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if you didn't say it, how could I have heard it? Yuan Weiqing was so scared that he hurriedly turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren and said loudly, Hall Master Zhang, no. It's all fake. I really didn't say it. Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, do you have any evidence? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, if you don't have any evidence, don't blame me for being rude to you. Do you understand? LV Hushan hurriedly nodded and said loudly, Hall Master Zhang, how would I dare to talk nonsense? If I don't have evidence, how would I dare to say it? After saying this, LV Hushan suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, is your memory so bad? Have you forgotten that we were not the only ones drinking at that time, right? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's face could not help but become very ugly. He was about to defend himself when he heard Zhang Chunren ask sternly, LV Hushan, is what you said true? You were not the only ones drinking at that time. There were others, right? LV Hushan nodded. Of course. If there were no others, how could there be evidence? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and shouted sternly, Yuan Weiqing, what else do you have to say? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he snorted coldly and continued. Yuan Weiqing, don't you want me to get out of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? Then I want to see who is the one who wants to get out of the secret thunder sect in the South County today. Hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Yuan Weiqing was so scared that he trembled. He hurriedly waved his hand and said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, this is not true. This is LV Hushan talking nonsense. How could I say that? LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Vice Hall Master Zhang, you can see that if I don't teach Yuan Weiqing a lesson, he won't admit it. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused and then said slowly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, why don't I use some tricks on him to make him tell the truth? What do you think? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was so scared that his body trembled. He subconsciously shouted, LV Hushan, how dare you? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, do you think I dare? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing subconsciously took a step back and said in a trembling voice, LV Hushan, don't come over. What you said is false. Vice Hall Master Zhang won't believe it. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren sighed, Yuan Weiqing, I didn't believe it at first, but LV Hushan has a witness. Do you think I should believe it? Yuan Weiqing's face was pale and he said sadly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, this is all false. I didn't say such a thing. LV Hushan is lying to you. LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, I advise you to admit it quickly so that you won't suffer later. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Zhang Chunren frowned and asked in a deep voice, LV Hushan, you're seriously injured. Can you still move? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, LV Hushan hurriedly nodded, Vice Hall Master Zhang, don't worry. There's absolutely no problem. If it was something else, LV Hushan would definitely not be able to move because he was seriously injured. Yi Tianhua's attack just now was very powerful. LV Hushan was seriously injured. In addition, Yuan Weiqing's kick just now was full of strength, which made his injury too serious. It could be said that it was already a miracle that LV Hushan could move now. However, LV Hushan hated Yuan Weiqing too much. Even if he couldn't move now, he still wanted to take revenge. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Zhang Chunren hesitated slightly and immediately nodded. He sighed and said, LV Hushan, since you don't have a problem, why don't you go and ask? Hearing this, LV Hushan was overjoyed. He stood up reluctantly and staggered toward Yuan Weiqing. Seeing LV Hushan coming over with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing suddenly took a step back in fear and said in a trembling voice, LV Hushan, what are you doing? LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, what do you think? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth, LV Hushan, don't go too far. If you dare to attack me, I won't let you go in the future. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I didn't want to attack you at first. Think about it, we used to be good friends and brothers. Every time we drank, we never forgot each other. Yuan Weiqing, I have no choice. Although we are good friends, I can't forgive you for speaking ill of Deputy Hall Master Zhang behind his back. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words. Yuan Weiqing, you'd better say it. I really can't bear to attack you. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was a little relieved and whispered, LV Hushan, let me go this time. How about it? I will repay you in the future. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I also want to let you go this time, but you spoke ill of Deputy Hall Master Zhang behind his back. You have to admit it, then I will let you go, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly waved his hand, LV Hushan, don't. If you let me go now, I will really be grateful to you in the future. LV Hushan sighed, Yuan Weiqing, why don't you understand? No matter what you say, I can't let you go unless you can admit what happened just now. Seeing that we are good friends, I will ask Deputy Hall Master Zhang to let you go. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown. How could he admit it? What LV Hushan said just now, Yuan Weiqing himself also admitted that he did say it. It was just that those words were said at the wine table, and they were all said in an unconscious state. As for Deputy Hall Master Zhang saying that he would leave soon, Yuan Weiqing was talking nonsense. He was not a hall master, so how could he know about this kind of thing? The most important thing was that LV Hushan was right. He did have a witness. When drinking, of course, the more people there were, the better. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing's drunken words were naturally heard by many people. However, no one took this kind of thing seriously. They just said a few words behind his back. Moreover, Yuan Weiqing was not the only one who said this. Even LV Hushan said it. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing lowered his voice and said, "LV Hushan, I advise you not to do anything to me. Otherwise, I will say what you said. What do you think Deputy Hall Master Zhang will do?" Hearing Yuan Weiqing's half-threatening and half-pleading words, LV Hushan waved his hand indifferently. "Yuan Weiqing, if you are willing to say it, then you can say it. I will never stop you." Speaking of this, LV Hushan lowered his tone to the lowest and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, but don't blame me for not reminding you. If you say it, you are the one who will suffer. Do you understand?" When Yuan Weiqing heard this sentence, he was just about to refute, but he suddenly saw LV Hushan flying and kicking him. Yuan Weiqing only felt a sharp pain and couldn't help but scream. He was kicked into the air and fell to the ground far away. Although LV Hushan's kick was a sneak attack, he used a lot of strength. After Yuan Weiqing fell to the ground, he directly spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Even his strength weakened a little. Cough cough. Yuan Weiqing stretched out his hand and pointed at LV Hushan. He wanted to curse a few words, but the violent cough made him unable to say a word. After Yuan Weiqing felt a little better, he found that LV Hushan had already walked over with a sneer. "Yuan Weiqing, how does it feel? Hurry up and admit it. If you admit it, I will let you go and ask Deputy Hall Master Zhang to let you go. Are you still not satisfied?" Yuan Weiqing was annoyed. He was about to scold LV Hushan when he saw LV Hushan's sneer. Suddenly, his heart moved. He knew that if he dared to say it, LV Hushan would definitely not let him go. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and swallowed back the words he wanted to say. "LV Hushan, we used to be good friends. We went through thick and thin together. I only ask you one thing now. Don't do it again. You also know that what you just said is false. Let me go?" Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, why are you still so stubborn? Don't you understand that if you insist on not saying it, you will be the one who suffers?" Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment. But then, he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words. He snorted coldly and continued. "Yuan Weiqing, seeing that we used to be friends, I didn't hit you hard just now. If you don't admit it, don't blame me for being rude." Yuan Weiqing naturally knew that LV Hushan didn't hit him hard just now, but he wasn't grateful to him. Because he knew very well that LV Hushan wouldn't dare to hit him hard before he figured out the situation. Once he died, Zhang Chunren would never let him go. Yuan Weiqing sighed. "LV Hushan, I said those drunken words, you said it too. Everyone else said it too. Why do you insist on holding on to me?" LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, because you have a good relationship with Hall Leader Shui. The reason why you didn't do it was because you hoped that Hall Leader Shui would escape quickly so that he could promote you to be the Deputy Hall Leader, right?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. "LV Hushan, it's not like that. How could I hope that Hall Leader Shui would escape? Even if he escaped, he wouldn't promote me." LV Hushan sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, if you don't want to admit it, it's fine. Then tell us with actual actions, okay?" Yuan Weiqing frowned and asked, "What actions?" LV Hushan, what do you want me to do? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.